Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The June 18th, 2025 meeting of the City Council will now come to order at 6 o'clock. Winnie, may we have roll call, please?
Jessica Ayers. Here. Nick Card.
Here.
Kevin Keating.
Here.
Mike Kurlinger.
Here.
John Quinn.
Here.
Zach Smith. Kevin Stein. And Garrett West.
Here.
We have 6 present.
All right, thank you. We have a quorum. Mr. Field, do you have anything under city manager reports for tonight?
I'm going to tender my time to Fire Chief Eric Thompson to talk a little bit about some events that are going on as we speak. So,
Excellent.
Chief.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Eric Thompson, your fire chief. Just a quick update. A lot of you have seen the smoke on coming over the hill to our west. A little bit around lunchtime today, there was a fire dispatched in the Applegate on Upper Applegate Road. Quickly grew and escalated to now what's over a 400-acre wildland fire. So just for you to know, your fire department does have 3 wildland fire engines and a task force leader helping on that fire. We have 5 different task force throughout the Rogue Valley, which is about 70 apparatus fighting that fire, along with ODF resources. We're very fortunate to have air support. So we have the very large air tanker, and then we have 3 large tankers and then multiple helicopters working the fire line. The fire did escalate and it's still growing. And so it did peak the ridge and it's starting to come down the slope. So we have night crews coming in from Marion County, and so we have some additional resources responding in for additional assistance. We hope that by in the morning we'll have it lined, but right now it's not lined. There's no containment. Just know that all your stations in our city are staffed, so we're not doing without. So we were able to do emergency callback, and we have a very dedicated staff, and they came back and they're helping support. Some of you may have heard that we have a task force assigned up in Central Oregon in the Sisters area on a fire. We have recalled those resources back because they have completed their mission there, and so they're responding back, and they'll also be available. So just wanted to give a quick update. One more thing, evacuation levels. There's about 1,500 people currently impacted in evacuation levels, and there's about 1,000 structures within those evacuation zones. And so the Watch Duty app, I'm going to do a quick plug for the Watch Duty app. That is a good source, a good resource for information. So download it on your phone, and it's amazing how quick the information is populated. It's credited. It's good information, and so it gives great links to the Jackson County Emergency Management link, Southwest Oregon Department of Forestry link. We are sharing that information as well. So it's just also one more opportunity for a little public education. Know your zone. So it's important to know your zones where you live. That way, when these events happen and you're signed up during Jackson County alerts, you know exactly when you should leave. So any questions? I'm available for any questions.
Questions? Yes, Nick.
Just a comment, Eric. Thank you for the update, and I'm glad that our crews are able to assist in this. It takes a team to do this. It's an unfortunate reminder: fire season is here, and it takes all of our vigilance to try to keep our valley safe and keep our people safe. So thanks for being a part of that.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you, sir. Moving on then to employee recognition. Human Resources Director Bonnie Barish is here to recognize a very, 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 very important work anniversary and 2 retirements.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm Bonnie Barish. I'm your HR Director, and I'm excited tonight just because I know the two people that are here very well, and so it's always a privilege to be able to recognize our employees. So the first person that I would like to recognize is Miss Winnie Shepherd, who she hates all this, so this is even more fun. So we're excited to recognize Winnie for 20 years of dedicated service to the city of Medford. She's a longtime Medford resident, and she joined the city in 2005 in search of career stability. Did you find that? And an opportunity to grow within the community that she calls home. Since then, she has served 4 city managers and steadily advanced through roles in licensing, administration, and records management, ultimately becoming our city recorder in 2021. Her commitment to accuracy, transparency, and public service is reflected in everything she does, from maintaining decades of council records to supporting our boards and commissions. Winnie's institutional knowledge and thoughtful leadership have made her an invaluable part of the organization. She's also just a great human being with a heart of gold, and that's not on anything that was written. I just want you to know that. So congratulate Winnie, and thank you for your 2 decades of service to the city. It's for you. We won't publish it here. All right, congratulations, Winnie. Next, we have a retirement of James Pruitt, a residential inspector, plans examiner, and he had 8 years of service. He could not be here tonight, but please join me in congratulating him on his retirement. All right, this one I am trying to keep it together for, so just keep that in mind. So tonight, we have the honor of recognizing someone whose dedication to public service has made a lasting impact, not only here at the city, but really across our region and our state. We are recognizing John Biles' retirement. He's retiring after 4 remarkable years with the city, but really his legacy spans over 3 decades of service to Oregon. With more than 13 years at the Oregon Department of Transportation, another 13 years at Jackson County, I think there's a theme that he needs to stay a few more years. John has brought invaluable experience, wisdom, and leadership to every position he's held. Since joining our city team, John has brought a level of institutional knowledge that is truly unmatched. He has earned the deep respect of his entire department and colleagues across the state, really every corner of the organization, from the staff in the field to the mayor and city council. John's commitment to his team, the community, it's really always been clear. Whether leading the Emergency Operations Center during the Almeida fire or advocating fiercely for its staff and ensuring the department continually punches above its weight, John leads with integrity, compassion, and resolve. He has a remarkable ability to connect with his employees. I have witnessed that firsthand. Community members and leaders at every level. He does a great job with communicating and staying in touch with community. His leadership style fosters trust, and his presence in the room always brought a calm, thoughtful approach to even the most complex challenges. While we know this isn't goodbye, we'll continue to see you out in the community and hopefully around here a bit, whether he's volunteering, spending time with his family, or enjoying one of his favorite pastimes, birding. This retirement is really a well-deserved opportunity for him to slow down and embrace the next chapter. So John, thank you. Thank you for the decades of service you've poured into this community and the positive impact you've made at the city, county, and state levels. It will continue to be felt for years to come. Sincerely grateful for your leadership, your friendship, me personally for your friendship, and your camaraderie within our department head team. Congratulations on your retirement, and you've more than earned it. Please join me in congratulating John. Thank you, John. And that concludes our employee recognition.
Well, thank you, Bonnie, and congratulations to our anniversary. And of course, thanks so much for all the hard work for our retirees. And John, good luck. You might get bored, so yeah. Moving on to some community group reports. Our first one up is the Consumer Credit Counseling Services update.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Bill Ely. I'm the CEO of Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Southern Oregon. We're located at 820 Crater Lake Avenue in the city of Medford. My remarks will be brief tonight so that we have time for questions at the end. So let me start with some quick data points on our agency. We were created in 1971. We're the region's only community-based nonprofit credit counseling agency. Annually, we serve 3,000 plus clients. Our services are open to all, but that said, nearly 90% of our clients come from an extremely low income setting. Last year, we experienced a growth rate of nearly 19% in new clients. We received no state or federal funding for our credit counseling. As many on the council may recall, in the fall of 2022, the city, state, and community leaders turned to me because of my long history in turnarounds and asked me to temporarily leave my duties at Consumer Credit Counseling and parachute in as the interim CEO of Rogue Retreat. They were facing bankruptcy and the prospect of 550 homeless hitting the streets of Medford. 6 months later, our team had plugged a $2 million plus hole, thanks in part from several large checks from the city of Medford. Rogue Retreat has returned to stable once again, and I returned to management of consumer credit counseling and my duties there. At the time, I saw that millions were being spent on the homeless issue at the back end. Now, don't get me wrong, Rogue Retreat does a really excellent job, and they have really dedicated staff. But it got me to thinking, who's working on the prevention end of homelessness? After all, we wear seat belts, we all take flu shots, but that's to prevent a bad outcome. Do we do anything for the homeless in that area? On a limited basis, we had already been working with some of our clients who were facing eviction, and the results were impressive. We had limited evictions. My idea was to expand this program citywide to prevent at-risk families from lapsing into homelessness. I approached city leadership at the time with a proposal, and with early support from Councilman Nick Card, in 2024 we received a grant from the city from pot tax funds of $35,000 for a test program. This is the first program of its kind in Oregon and one of only 2 on the West Coast. It's now a year later, and I'm here to report on the council on the results of your investment. With the $35,000 through the one-time credit counsel, through the one-on-one credit counseling, case management of at-risk families, we were able to prevent 22 families from lapsing into homelessness. I think we'll all agree that's a pretty impressive record of accomplishment, and shows that prevention really does work. That's roughly $1,000 for every family that we save from homelessness. The city-sponsored homeless program worked, and it showed excellent results. Our clients come from a number of referral sources. They learn of our programs and results from our reputation. They also come from La Clinica, Rogue Community Health, Mercy's Gate, St. Vincent de Paul. All are at risk of becoming evicted, many with children. Keep in mind, we're the only agency of our kind in the region. I want to close my presentation with words of thanks to the city for your leadership in this area. The program is creative, it's bold, it's different, and it's working. And it's the first one in the state of Oregon. To Councilman Card, thank you for your leadership. We couldn't have done this without you. You were there from the start, and we appreciate your leadership. We've shown that leadership can work and that prevention can work in the homeless program, and I'm open to any questions.
Yes.
Thanks, Bill. You said that you served 22 families. Do you feel like you were turning people away? Was
Probably.
there a greater need?
Yeah, I mean, we don't turn people away. Just this week, we got 7 new clients from La Clinica. I have 2 counselors We are not able to see everybody as rapidly as we can. There's a lot of at-risk people out there. We know that. We saw a 19% growth rate last year. If you're in a business and you had a 19% growth rate, Wall Street Journal would be writing about you. It's just a sad indication of where we are. We are turning people away, or we're not being able to see them as soon as they need to be because they're facing eviction. And that's a matter of weeks, not months.
Yeah, Kevin.
Hey, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Can you tell me basically how you're accomplishing this with,
Sure.
with the families in general, if you can?
Sure. A lot of the families come in have excessive credit card debt. And we have a program, it's called Debt Management Program, where we work with almost all of the major credit cards. These clients are high risk, and so they're paying 35% on their credit card rates. With our agreements with the credit card companies, for example, American Express, we can get that. We can bring in their credit cards. We can get that down to 2%. So suddenly, a family who is putting everything into the credit cards suddenly may have $400, $500, $600 extra spending money that month. Now, the challenge is to make sure that they spend it in the right way, and that's where we come in. Not only the debt management program, but be able to make sure that they spend it in the right way. $300, $400 can make the difference, Councilman, between being homeless, having food on the table for these clients. And so those are really valuable programs for our clients.
Nick?
Thanks, Bill. I don't want to talk too long here because I know we got a lot of other groups to go through, but I just want to point out that I think the work that you're doing and part of why I jumped on board is that, to me, the data is very clear. It's most people who become homeless don't become homeless because of something crazy or ridiculous, like they get booted out of their house. Or I mean, it's like it's
not a matter of choice.
It's not a matter of choice. It's a single small event that they are barely keeping their head above water, but that one event is enough to drag them under, and from there it begins a spiral that inevitably leads to them being on the street. So for us to be able to stop that before that spiral gets to the bottom, that is a huge return on investment, not just because it's cheaper for us to prevent it than it is for us to treat it, but it's also because it means people who are active members of community and society stay that way, and their ties and connections continue. They don't have to be rebuilt.
It can be something as small as Junior falling and breaking his arm, and you don't have the $500 to take him to wherever it needs to get repaired. And you were making it last week. You were doing it, you were making the minimum credit card payments and all of those kind of things, and suddenly there's something like that. The car breaks down, and you don't have the extra money. There's no rainy day fund. And we help people establish rainy day funds, manage their credit cards, budgeting. All of our services are offered for free in English and Spanish, and we do really well at not turning anybody away. You show up at our door, you're going to get help. That's just the rule.
Thanks, Bill.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Southern Oregon Historical Society update.
Good evening, Councilman and Mayor. Thank you very much for having us here. My name is Doug McGeary. I'm the president of the Southern Oregon Historical Society. And so with a big thank you, I want to start off on behalf of the Southern Oregon Historical Society. Thank you for your investment in our vision of the J.C. Penney building. Your $50,000 grant is an essential part to the phase 2 of our project, transforming a historic landmark into a public-facing event center that benefits the entire downtown and as well as the region. We are executing this project according to a strategy. There are 3 deliberate, carefully sequenced plan phases to meet the requirements of all the funding partners and ensure a long-term success. We've signed a contract manager and general contractor, or CMGC contract, with JB Steel as a form of delivery for this project, with Russ Botzer directly managing the project. We're using a $500,000 grant, state grant, the CREF funds, for funding plan and compliance obligations. HVAC, roof repairs, and bathrooms are underway or in a bidding pipeline. We are also in a final mediation with a prior roofing contractor that we're getting that we're getting that done, and the mediation does take time, but getting that roof right is essential before launching phase 2. The city's of Medford grant is earmarked for phase 2, beginning later this year, once CREF funding work is completed. Your fund will support the highly and expected visible public-facing interior build-out, exactly the kind of impact that that you would want associated with your investment. That includes a 4,000 square foot main hall. That it also includes 3 rentable conference rooms, a catering kitchen, a gathering space with character, or speakeasy, and Will Brake is our executive director. He'll get into some of those details for you later on in this presentation. And also a bridegroom suite for special events. This is not going to be, your funds are not going to be used for door hinges or wiring. No, your money is going towards the parts of the project that the public will see and talk about. We understand that the Medford is exploring expanded event and conference opportunities. We are not in competition. We are in fact complementary. Our venue has a unique style, a unique niche, historic ambiance, museum context, and cultural depth. We will support Medford's broader strategy of being on the regional event grid, available for businesses, business gatherings, cultural events, performances, and heritage tourism. This project will also increase tourism, property values, and visibility for downtown Medford, aligning with your downtown development priorities. This event center builds on what Southern Oregon Historical Society already delivers to Medford, a premier archive supporting property development and restoration, education partnerships, including new school curriculums and Hanley Farm events, direct support to contractors, city planners, and researchers through our historical records, and as well as a high-yield cultural tourism draw. And for us, and we find that the cultural tourist spends at least 27% more and stays longer than other type tourism. So with that, we're not. It's taking time. We're not behind. We would like to go faster, of course. Everyone would like things to go faster, but we're exactly where we should be given our timeline, our legal obligations, and the construction conditions. We're on it, and the city's funds are used. You'll be able to point to the results and say that Medford made this happen. So I will turn over for the details. Thank you again. Turn the details over to Will, and he'll kind of explain what the project is.
So thank you. So yeah, basically we are working directly with the contractors, the architects right now to, the real sexy stuff like the HVAC units on the roof. We're replacing 9 of those. We will be impacting the streets around us in order to get all that accomplished. And we'll work directly with the city on all of that. We have to have some of the roof repaired that was damaged a few years ago after the settlement is done. We're then moving very quickly into the bathrooms, which is some of those were knocked out of commission, and so we're working on those. And then while we're doing all of that, we're working directly with the architects on developing the plans for the event center. We're also adding a 6,000 square foot museum on the upper level that will be kind of phase 4, if you will. And that will also bring additional tourism to the building and the downtown. So we're really excited about it. He kind of talked quickly about the speakeasy. We are going to be adding an internal non-public facing speakeasy, but it will be something that people can add to their venue for a wedding or for an event. And we're looking to make that a very authentic, historically correct speakeasy. And so we're pretty excited about that. Questions?
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for presenting. Jessica?
So what's your estimated timeline for completion?
We're looking at, our goal is mid-26. Yep.
Kevin?
When was that building last the J.C. Penney's?
It was a JCPenney's in 1985 when the mall opened. They moved in 86 and opened there, and they've been there ever since. But it hasn't been JCPenney's for quite a long time. But we have all the historic pictures, which are amazing. I'm there every day, and it's amazing how many people come in and say, right up there is where I bought my first set of school clothes and ski wear and everything else. It's really cool.
Thank you.
Kevin?
Hey, thank you. The litigation that you mentioned and the mediation, is that imminently going to be completed? Or?
We are actively working to resolve that, and it looks like it's very, very close to being done.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Garrett?
I just wanted to thank you both for all the stuff you're doing for the JCPenney building. My grandmother worked there in the 1950s, so it's nice to know that that's being rehabbed, and for all the work you're doing to preserve Southern Oregon's history and all of our treasures. Thank you.
Absolutely. We can hardly wait to get it out there. Yeah, and the whole design on the inside, if you haven't driven by and looked at kind of the artwork we have on the outside, it's going to be in what's called an art moderne style. A streamlined modern style, which is a subset of Art Deco, and it's going to be really, really cool when we're all done.
Nick?
So one of the things I noticed here, you say that your main event hall's 4,000 square feet, but it's only going to seat 200 people. That seems really low for a...
So we're trying to be, we don't want to overestimate that. There's a stairway right in the middle of all of it. If you haven't been in there, there's a big staircase that comes down through the middle of it. And then, there's some other things we're going to be putting in there that, refreshment center and different, coat check and things that are in that main hall. I'm not wanting to overpromise on the numbers. When you start quoting numbers, they stick. And so there's been estimates as high as 250, but we're trying to stick with the 200 just to be up, to be conservative.
John?
I'm glad to hear that litigation is coming to a close. I hadn't heard an update, well, maybe 12 months ago I heard something about it, and it was a little bit of a darker day then. But it seemed to me like you had a pretty good case. I'm glad you're bringing it to them.
We are too.
Yeah, good.
Believe me.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, yeah, thanks for the update. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Youth 71.5.
Hello, Mayor Zarazinski and council members. Thank you so much for the invite to be here. We've got 5 minutes to share all the amazing things you're doing through 71.5, so buckle up. So it doesn't take much to see how young people are struggling in our community these days. And much of it stems from what we call relational poverty, where young people don't have the relationships they need to thrive. And so 71.5 helps with that. We provide safe spaces, trusting relationships, and a message of hope, and many different programs in which to engage young people in those things. One of the major areas of programming is 71.5 Vote Tech, and this is where we share with young people life skills, instruction in the trades, with automotive repair, construction technology, welding, fabrication, small engine repair, construction technology, where they learn some electrical and plumbing information. And that's where young people have a chance to transition from adolescence to adulthood. Quick definition in my mind of adulthood is where young people learn to take responsibility for themselves, take responsibility for others, and be productive. And that's what we're training young people to do. So, the city of Medford has been involved, has been a great partner of 71.5 VOTEC since 2019, and that's where through CDBG funding, we were able to get this shop established. The upper story is transitional housing, and this was the only shop space that we had, and everything, all of our trade technology training took place in this one space. And it's a long story, but the CDBG funding set us in a direction to get 18 Almond, which is our next facility, although the funding ended up going to this facility, and because the owner played kind of hard to get with the original 18 Almond. So anyway, long story, we'll get to that some other day. Anyway, so this is the shop that we're finishing up. Looks like a rendering, but it actually is an actual photo. And this is where soon we're going to be opening up, and aviation technology, automotive repair, construction technology will all take place in this setting. And the reason we're here is to talk about case management. And so I want to introduce to you Teresa Hutley, our case manager, and she'll tell you the most important part, that is some kid stories.
Thank you so much, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Teresa Hutley, and I'm the case manager at VOTEC. I want to thank you for your contribution to making my position possible. I have the privilege to work with young men and women who are interested in the trades, and my office is right in the middle of the building, and the students, the front door, the classroom, and the shop, and so I'm kind of right in the middle of the hub. I love it. My job has many different layers, from taking people on tours, registration, data, food, managing the upstairs transitional home where the students live when they're on campus. I help students stay focused on getting their diploma, getting their GED, driver's license. I mean, anything that you can imagine, we help them do that. The most important part of my job is building relationships, getting to know them, hearing their stories. And once a student comes through our program, they become family. And so it's pretty cool. We like to see our students go from this spot and move the marker clear over here. But in 3 months' time, that doesn't always happen. They don't always check all the boxes. But in those 3 months, they are learning life skills, a trade, and they're learning that we really super care about them. So in the last 3 years, we have had 234 students go through our program. About 85% earn a certificate. We're a pre-apprenticeship program. And one thing that I have come to find is that they might not go out and get a great job right when they leave us, but over time, they come back and they want us to celebrate them getting an apartment, a car, a driver's license. So it happens over the next few years, right, in their life. So it's very exciting. I have a couple of letters to read. These are written by the students themselves. This young man graduated 3 months ago. Hello, my name is Ismail. I'm 24 years old. I graduated from Phoenix High School in 2018 and continued my education at Southern Oregon University. There I competed on the wrestling team, and I was on track to be a nurse in hopes of becoming a nurse practitioner. 3 years later, we were assigned a new coach. This led to my scholarship being cut to a minimum. Not being able to pay for school and being overwhelmed with life, I decided to drop out and quit the team. This led to drama, fights, and that landed me in jail multiple times in an 8-month span in 2023. In January of 2024, I began my probation program and got clean. I was assigned to a therapist as part of my regulations, and through the therapist, I learned about VOTEC. She asked if the program was something I'd be interested in, and after thinking about it, I jumped in and he called me. Since he's been to VOTEC, he says, I've learned hard skills for the real world, like carpentry, small engine repair, wiring, and many other skills in mechanics. But I've also worked on and learned soft skills such as overcoming fears and how to conduct my life in the work environment. Because of VOTEC, I have a hopeful future. And I wish I had a picture of this young man, because he came in very downtrodden and he left like with hope for his future. The second one that I want to read is about Sean, and he's living upstairs right now. He's 20 years old, and he writes, and he will graduate actually next Thursday. He writes, 71.5 VOTEC helped me by providing structure, a place to live, the privilege to learn a trade, and hope. Thank you, 71.5 exclamation mark. So in closing, I just want to say that some days are very hard, and we have a young man living upstairs right now. He first came to us from B2B. He was part of the juvenile delinquent, what am I trying to say? Here in town. But he came to us through that program, and then as he got older, now he's living with us and going through the program. But he's been feeling like all I care about is how clean he keeps his room, and saying that nobody cares. He actually told me yesterday that he doesn't know if he's going to come back. He feels like giving up on life. So, of course, my heart sinks to my shoes. He said he was going to leave, and I had texted him and said, I hope you don't leave. You've got 2 weeks to graduate. We're for you. You're going to make it. I hear you, and I hope we can talk in the morning. I didn't hear anything from him until 11:30 last night, and he texted and said, I'll be in class. And so today we got to have a good conversation, but not every day is easy with these students. Sometimes the job is messy, but it's our desire that these students succeed. And for some of them, just actually showing up is success. So thank you for being part of that.
Thank you. Questions? Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, the services that you talked about, is there are most of the services go towards males, boys?
In the VOTEC program,
Yeah.
the majority is young men, but we have quite a few young women. I don't know if you can give an idea percentage-wise.
It's probably 20-80. 20-80. Girls are
20,
very much apart to come, but probably 20% women.
Okay. And is that kind of the same throughout all the programs? It's just going to be primarily boys that run through your services? Do you utilize your services?
I would say in VOTEC that's accurate, but in our overall programming, it's probably very close to 50-50.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? So Bud, I noticed, in particular with the letter sent, that the ages were a little bit older. So how old do you serve, or is there actually an age requirement for that?
So our age range for VOTEC is ages 16 through 24, which the state recognizes as what's termed opportunity youth. And so that's outside of what we have typically done over the last decades. And reality is, if a young person is safe in the shops at age 15, we would open that door. Also, if someone over 24 is safe for the group, there's a transition there. 24, 25, they move into a more independent. Sometimes we're dealing with addictions and that sort of thing. So if they're safe for the group and they're a little older, we'll let them in. But yeah, 16 to 24 is that target.
Yeah, that's. I guess it just kind of stuck out. That's an age, over 18, where kind of neglected to a certain degree. And if you had gotten a little bit sidetracked and had to get back on the rails, so to speak, that's interesting. So yeah. All right. Well, thanks.
Yeah, thank you. And
actually, we do have one more.
Yeah, can anyone come to use your services, or is it mostly referred from government?
Really, it's open to anyone, and a lot of it comes word of mouth. And then also, we have justice-involved young people, and school counselors send folks, and we have a lot of other community partners that end up sending. There was a picture Right there is actually Teresa this morning giving a tour. The gentleman towards the right is bringing some potential students in, and he works with skaters. Trying to remember the name of his program right now. But anyway, that was this morning giving a tour of our facilities for these young people.
And did you have one more thing you wanted to add, or?
I just wanted to say, open invitation is out there for you guys to come visit, take a tour of our campus, and see what you're accomplishing firsthand.
Great. Well, I appreciate you guys both coming down, and it was great to hear about the program.
Thank you.
Rogue Valley Mentoring. We have
Good evening. I've written you all a book. I'm just kidding. It looks like it, though. Good evening, council members. My name is Laura Pinney, and I'm the executive director of Rogue Valley Mentoring. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and for your generous support that you've provided to help Medford's youth thrive. It's clear from all the people who are here today, my fellow partners and youth mentors, that this council has been advocates and allies for youth and work upstream all year, and probably far before that. So I know there are several new council members. I wanted to invite you to think about the impact a mentor has had in your life. It's easy for youth and families to feel isolated today in the nuclear family construct, and I would like to share that Rogue Valley Mentoring has been serving Jackson County for nearly 20 years. We're based right here in Medford at the old Coyote Trails Nature Center, and our programs focus on one powerful tool: connection. Built through consistency, accountability, skill building, and meaningful mentorship that helps youth stay in school, make responsible choices, engage in their community, and grow into contributing members of society. We serve youth ages 9 to 24 with mentoring programs, both one-on-one and group-based, that foster resilience, confidence, and a deep sense of belonging. Our hope is to be a part of creating positive experiences for our youth right here in Medford, so they want to return here to begin their careers, to start their families, and to grow their businesses. This year, thanks in part to your support, in large part to your support, we've expanded our presence in Medford. We've welcomed more Medford-based volunteers. Historically, we had a lot of Ashland volunteers serving Medford families, and so with your help and support, we currently have 30 Medford-based mentors. We hosted our annual youth panel and block party event where we served over 150 people. We continued to serve families through our one-to-one match program this year, and we currently have 37 Medford-based mentees, with an additional 16 who have applied or been referred over the last month, getting lined up for interviews. With your help, we offered 3 trainings this year and trained 37 new volunteer mentors. Our staff has made 15 presentations across Medford, connecting with our community and sharing about our work. We've received 17 direct youth referrals from Medford partner organizations like La Clinica, Maslow, ODHS, the Family Connection, Hedrick Middle School, and we're forming a new and exciting partnership with Cascade House. We attended 3 major Medford community events this year, and we're planning to launch school circles in 2 Medford middle schools this year. One of our hopes when we had originally presented this project and our programs to the Medford City Council was to be able to start circles at Oakdale in January. Those were not able to happen despite ongoing conversations and communication with the district, in large part because of their turnover and challenges this year. But we are poised and ready to start in September. In fact, my next meeting is next week with their representative. These numbers These programs aren't just theoretical, they're changing lives. I also wanted to bring a story about a young man in our program who, while he had a mentor, was abandoned by his mother and placed into foster care here in Medford. During the chaos of that transition, he lost his phone and lost touch with his mentor. Their bond, but once he was safe, he reached out and the mentor responded immediately. Their bond picked up right where it left off, and his new foster parent, moved by the strength of their connection, reached out to us to request mentors for the other 3 teen boys in her care. Medford has an extraordinary number of caring people who are foster parents, and when they reach out to us for support, we find they have multiple youth in their care who end up benefiting from our programs. One of those boys, a high school junior at North Medford, told us he felt isolated and down. His aunt was stretched thin, and he needed someone to spend time with and encourage him. We matched him with a mentor that week, and they met weekly going on outings, practicing for his driver's permit, and helping him prepare for a summer job. This is what mentors do. Because of your investment in local services, we've also started working with Cascade House, which is a Medford-based residential behavioral health program to offer mentors for the teen girls living there. These are youth facing big challenges, and your support is working upstream, opening doors for healing, growth, and connection. The outcomes from last year told us that 84% of youth felt more confident and 82% found ways to solve problems with others. We have just finished collecting our data from this school year, and so I don't have fresh data from this group of youth to share with you today, except what we were able to get from the school, which is that youth were 18% more likely to attend school on the days that they had our programs. So this is improving absenteeism, which is a huge issue facing our districts. Thank you for believing in our work and standing with our youth. Together, we're helping them navigate challenges, discover their strengths, and build the foundation for a thriving community. I've included at the end, I've dog-eared the bullet points of numbers served, and then at the end I've included a budget comparison with where we said we would send the funds and where we chose to send those funds. So it was easy to divert to our Youth Leadership Advisory Board, which you'll see in here as YLAB, Y-L-A-B, which is a leadership group serving all but one Medford youth, all but one are Medford youth. And your support helped them to go to Salem, where they were able to speak with senators and lawmakers and tour the Capitol building, in addition to their weekly meetings. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you for that update. Any questions? And I guess the one question would be, and your age group goes just, it's mostly in school-age children?
We're 9 to 24.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
We just had our first mentee become a board member, and he's 22.
Nice. Yes, Kevin.
Yeah, well, I'll just ask the same question, just kind of like Mike did. So what are I'm looking at the pictures here, and it seems kind of female dominant. So do you see more girls, women, more likely to, use your services?
No, I would say we have, it's probably 60-40 with more males, actually.
Oh, really?
And that's specifically in our one-to-one program. I don't know what the data is for our school-based, but for our one-to-one program, 60-40.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
We are now to oral requests and communications. Maybe just real quickly, Winnie, we did not receive any written comments. Did anyone fill out a comment to speak? We have one? Okay. There's a long list of instructions, but I tell you what, let's just take a chance here with our one speaker. Who is that?
It's Nicholas Stanley.
Right. 2 weeks ago, I told this council about instances where MPD was providing insufficient overdose response and preventing professionals and trained citizens from providing effective response. I was contacted by Deputy Chief Graham from MPD. Why he was the one to reach out to me instead of a member of this council is a question I have. I and others have already attempted to talk to numerous officers from MPD about this without anything to show for it. I emailed MPD requesting information about this issue weeks before my original council appearance with no response. But thanks to your minimal oversight after that appearance, they finally sent me a message, though much like their overdose response, it was insufficient. MPD claims that their guidance stems from an American Heart Association article that was released in 2021. They claim that this article says that there are two types of people that respond to overdoses, lay people and healthcare providers. They claim that the police, harm reduction professionals, and trained volunteers are all lay people and therefore should not provide rescue breaths. I suppose that's their stated rationale for threatening us with arrest when we are providing effective overdose response. Must be why they're mocking me and other ones while we're watching that person die after they took over, which is very upsetting. But the kicker for me is that MPD's interpretation of the article is extremely flawed. It clearly references a third type of overdose responder, a trained layperson, who the article suggests can be trained to do nearly everything healthcare providers do in an out-of-hospital overdose situation, including rescue breathing. Sorry, just getting a little upset. Can I finish? Thank you. Harm reduction professionals and trained volunteers are these third type of responders. Our county public health employees who are trained in response that emphasizes rescue breathing are these responders. Nonprofit workers, concerned citizens, family members of drug users are these type of responders. The police should be these type of responders. Is MPD going to arrest all of these people for providing effective response? Or are you going to ask them to update their training to reflect what federal agencies like the CDC and SAMHSA and our own county public health department suggest? Please align yourself with the prevailing science on this issue and find your employees more effective training, or at least stop people who are don't stop people who are better trained and more knowledgeable than your officers from doing what we can to save people. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak tonight that did not fill out a form? We will go on to approval or correction of the June 4th, 2025 meeting minutes. We've all received the draft minutes. And does anyone have any revisions or corrections, or the minutes will stand as submitted? Seeing none, the minutes will stand as submitted. Agenda item 60, consent calendar. There are 3 items on the consent calendar tonight. Mr. Moreland.
Consent calendar, item 60.1, Council Bill 2025-49, an ordinance amending sections 3.817, 3.838, 3.873, and 3.892 of the Medford Municipal Code pertaining to the reduction of city systems development charges assessed for construction of accessory dwelling units. Item 60.2, Council Bill 2025-50, an ordinance approving and authorizing execution of a one-year contract in the amount of $448,650 with Univar Solutions for the purpose of supplying and delivering bulk chemicals to the regional water reclamation facility. Item 60.3, Council Bill 2025-51, a resolution approving and adopting the 2025-2027 council biennial goals for the city of Medford.
Thank you, Mr. Moreland. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Moved by Nick Card. I'll take a, did I
Second.
Did I not hear a second?
I will second.
Seconded by Mr. West. Any items to be removed? Yes, Kevin.
60.3.
60.3. All right. All right, could we have the roll call for
Mayor, I don't want to pull 60.2, but I had a question for Mr. Vile about it.
Yeah, just go ahead and pull it, so we'll pull 60.2.
Okay.
Okay. So, ballot on the consent calendar of 60.1.
Nick Card.
Yes.
Garrett West.
Yes.
Kevin Stein.
Yes.
John Quinn.
Yes.
Jessica Ayers.
Yes.
Mike Curlinger.
Yes.
And Kevin Keating.
Yes.
We have 7 yes.
Okay, 60.1 passes. Let's just go in order. 60.2 question from Mr. Quinn.
I'll be peaceful. John, how are you? It's good to see you. Sorry, I'm seeing you for the last time today here. I let you know that I had this question in advance. You know, with respect to the chemicals that you're buying, I understand that that's necessary, and of course I support it, but at RVSS, we have shifted our Shady Cove plant, which is obviously radically tinier than the Medford plant, from chlorine to UV. And I was just curious whether any thought had been given to doing that to our plant. I know the power draw would be pretty massive given the size of the plant, but we've actually, I think we're saving money at it, and we've managed to spend net of grants only $850,000 to pull chlorine completely out of the system in Shady Cove. So it's pretty monetarily effective and saved a lot of detriment to employees and to the environment. So I just thought I would ask that question, and I thought maybe other members of the council might be interested to know your answer.
Thank Councilor Quinn, John Bile, Public Works Director. Just for the education of the remaining members of the council, so in the wastewater treatment process, the last step that you do is you treat the effluent to kill any pathogens in the effluent. And so there's multiple ways to do that, but the two most common ways is you treat it with basically bleach, a concentration of bleach, and then you remove that chlorine from it before you discharge it to the river. You can also use ultraviolet light, and ultraviolet light kills the pathogens that are in there. UV lamps are effective at killing pathogens. Employees don't have to handle the chemicals, and they're fairly user-friendly. You just change a bulb in the system. But as part of the our wastewater treatment plant facility plan, we ask that the consultant to look into this, and they dismissed this alternative very, very quickly. And the reason they dismissed this alternative is because we have a disinfection facility in the plant already. And replacing that facility with a UV facility, while they didn't complete a detailed cost estimate with the design, it was estimated to range in the $25 to $50 million range to replace the current disinfection system with a comprehensive UV system in our plant. It's way bigger than Shady Cove. While operating costs sometimes can be cheaper, the UV systems are extremely energy intensive. They suck a ton of power, and a system as large as we would have to be, we're not sure that it would be any cheaper. The last item I would just share is one of the challenges with UV is you have to size the plant for your peak flows. So you're going to have all these channels where the effluent's going to be moving through it. Our plant averages about 18 million gallons per day of treatment, but we can go up towards 100 or more million gallons a day. So you'd have a UV system built for a flow of 100 million gallons per day that would sit idle almost all the year. So it would be a very expensive process that you would not be able to implement very often. And so for those reasons, the engineers dismissed this alternative quite quickly because we have to reinvest all that money into a system that works very well. The use of chlorine and bleach is very common. It's the most common form to treat and disinfect the effluent. UV systems have their place and they do work well, but for this particular application, what we are using now was believed to be the best alternative.
And John, I was kind of aware that that would be the response given the vastness of the Medford plant. The thing that kind of turned me on to it and got me interested in it is when I first toured the Shady Cove plant, the place where the chlorine is stored, the concrete is eaten away. And if it eats away concrete, I don't love putting it in the river.
Yeah, and so when we add the bleach to the effluent, we immediately then have to strip that bleach out using sodium bisulfate.
Right.
So we take and we treat it, because the bottom line is, per our permit, we can't put chlorine into the river. We have to neutralize it, and we take tests from that effluent to ensure that we're doing so, and our tests almost always come back showing chlorine levels lower than what's in the river already.
Great.
Other questions? Motion?
I move adoption of Council Bill 2025-50.
Second.
So that's motion by Mr. West, second by Mr. Card. Any discussion? Winnie, will you call the roll?
Garrett West,
Yes.
Nick Card.
Yes.
Kevin Keating.
Yes.
Kevin Stein.
Yes.
John Quinn.
Yes.
Jessica Ayers.
Yes.
And Mike Curlinger.
Yes.
We have 7 yes.
All right, motion passes. 60.3, Kevin?
Yeah, just making note that at your places, you'll see something that says community planning and neighborhood identity. And then within that, you'll see some things in red. So I pointed this out like 2.5 hours ago to KJ, and she remastered this and put those 2 direct things in there. So great credit to her for doing it. Makes me think maybe I should wait till 5 o'clock, like some of the legal people do that come before the council to get things done. No one at this dais, but some of your friends that live in the area. So I'm just pointing that out before adoption, that this will be 60.3, but with the changes.
And I guess just for my clarification, because I wasn't there, these additions were all approved by council at the time?
Yeah, these are things that we discussed when we had the meeting on the second floor about council goals that were specifically discussed.
Okay. Giving everyone a minute to look at some red text. All looks right, so entertain a motion.
If I can find it. I move to approve Council Bill 2025 TAC 5-1 with the changes as presented.
Second.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Stein, second by Mr. West. Any discussion? Winnie, will you call the roll, please?
Kevin Stein.
Yes.
Garrett West. John Quinn.
Yes.
Nick Card.
Yes.
Kevin Keating.
Yes.
Jessica Ayers.
Yes.
And Mike Curlinger.
Yes.
We have 7 yes.
Motion passes. Agenda item 80 is ordinances and resolutions. There are 2 items for consideration tonight. Mr. Moreland.
Item 80.1, Council Bill 2025-52, an ordinance approving an amendment to the Medford Comprehensive Plan to adopt the 2024 Parks Strategic Plan into the public facilities and the conclusions, goals, policies, and implementation strategies elements of the Medford Comprehensive Plan.
Okay. I think I've lost my mind. It's not on there?
It's the amended one. Yeah.
Let's double check in 80.1 real quick.
So I should be this one. Yeah, we had to change to the agenda. It's item 80.1 is Council Bill 2025-53, a resolution requesting surrender by Jackson County to the City of Medford all right, title, interest, jurisdiction, maintenance, and control of all subject roadway sections to the city.
Yes, perfect. Okay. Would you like a staff report? Would you like to make a motion? Staff report, please.
Figure we make John, really use his last day.
Get our money's worth here. When is the retirement date?
No, I understand. Yeah, okay.
Mayor and Council John Vile, Public Works Director. So as noted, this is a resolution requesting your approval to surrender several county roads within the city limits to our jurisdiction. So just, I need to touch on just a couple of laws and agreements that are forcing this. So under the current Oregon revised statute, I'll just read it. If a city government body determines to initiate action under this section for the surrender of jurisdiction of a county by a county over a county road, the city government may initiate the action by passage of appropriate municipal legislation that requests surrender and that may set any time or other limitations. So in order for a county road to be transferred to a city, the city has the right to say, we'll take it, but here's the conditions you have to meet. You have to do this before we are willing to take the road. That's what the law says. So through the process of upgrading our urban growth boundary several years ago, a very large exercise to upgrade our urban growth boundary several years ago, the city and the county entered into 2 agreements. And both those agreements have very similar language in them. And this is something the county insisted on, and the county was not willing to sign the agreements unless this language is here. And basically what the language says is when the city's UGB is expanded, we have to take the county roads in their current condition, and we can't say no. So as the UGB expansion was approved, and then developers came in and started annexing land into the city, at that time of annexation, we had to take the road, and we were not able to say no. Even though the ORS says we could say no, we had an assigned agreement, which is basically a contract that says, city, you don't have a choice, take the roads.
And by the county, don't you mean you?
Yes. It was something that I was involved with when I was in the county, but believe me, there was some very strong feelings on this one. So, yeah, thank you, Jessica. So there are 5 sections of roads that are being asked to transfer. This overhead shows them, and I'll just go through the list of them real quick. So there's a section of Orchard Home Drive from South Stage Road that goes north some distance, a section of Foothill Road north of Delta Waters, North Phoenix Road from Coal Mine Road going south down to the edge of the golf course, the remainder of Coal Mine Road, and then South Stage Road. I'll go back to that graphic though. One of the challenges that we've had with this exercise is you'll notice, and I'll just use Foothill Road as a perfect example. At the intersection of Delta Waters and Foothill is where the city jurisdiction ends. So then now there's going to be a county section of road and then a city section of road. And it's what I call checkerboarding, where we're creating these city-county sections of road. I think it's bad policy. I don't think it's something that is a good idea. But the bottom line is we have a signed agreement that carries the force of a contract that is binding. And if the county wants us to take the roads, I think we have to take the roads. So this is that section of Foothill Road I talked about, where this is now going to be inside the city limits, but on both sides of it are county. And it's just, I don't know that it's good policy, but the county's insisting on it, and I think we have to do it. One last thing is they do have to deliver the roads to us in fair or better condition for their pavement condition. And so this summer, they are going to be chip sealing Orchard Home Drive. All the remainder roads that we're taking, the pavement condition is in good shape. And so my recommendation is I reluctantly recommend your approval of resolution surrendering these roads to the city of Medford.
Questions? Garrett. How long is this contract with the county?
It's in perpetuity. Probably the good news, Counselor, is so many of the annexations that were contemplated in the large urban growth boundary expansion, most of those annexations are done. Most of the roads we have to take is now a done deal. There's not very many of these left.
So it was tied to those specific land areas?
The MD 456, that whole process, those development, those urban growth boundary areas, as they were annexed, it's the roads inside them that came, and like I say, the huge majority of those are done.
Kevin?
2 questions. One, the Foothill portion, are you saying that that's actually outside the city limits? It'll be like in a little exclave?
No,
city?
it was annexed.
Okay.
So planning could probably come in and tell me the date, because they know everything, but I don't. But there was, at some time in the past, there was a section of undeveloped land north of Delta Waters that was annexed into the city. It included Foothill Road, so that is within the city limits.
Okay.
But between that section and Delta Waters, it's not in the city limits, and that's a county road section.
Okay. And then just secondly, if I may, for the city attorney, we can make agreements that bind future councils in perpetuity, is that correct?
From what I understand, yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Card.
Just to your point, Kevin, we can sign agreements as the city of Medford that have consequences in the future. Whether future councils decide to try to throw those out is a different question entirely. But ultimately, we have the ability to sign contracts on behalf of the city of Medford. That those contracts then may have the force of law into the future. To this point, John, the checkerboarding thing is really why I dragged this up, because I really wanted to get kind of just some thoughts, and I figured, kind of to Jessica's point, I knew you were on the other side of this agreement. Do you think there's space for the county for us to negotiate some kind of a, hey, look, I know we're supposed to take this portion of the road, but can we swap with this other portion of the road? And so, yeah, you have to take care of this part that's in the city limits, but we're going to take care of this part that's in the county, and just in a way to minimize that kind of checkerboarding problem, because I do see that as a big public policy failure.
So when I was with the county, the first one of these came on board, and that's exactly what we did. Is what I did at that time. I was with the county as I approached the city, and I said, I don't know this is a good idea. We'll continue to take care of this if you'll take this road over here. And we did some horse trading. It was on South Stage Road, and then we made an agreement that basically said, until there's a whole half mile of road that would be coming into the city, it stays in county jurisdiction. I attempted to negotiate that with this agreement, and the county was very clear that they think that we've pushed that too far, and it's time for us to take the roads. So I tried.
Yeah.
Will this affect speed limits or things like that, enforcement?
No, this is simply the who owns and manages the road.
Yeah, John Quinn.
Hi, John. So particularly like the one Orchard Home and South Stage, that's going to stay culverts unless somebody develops. The city's not going to now have to go put up sidewalks and things like that, correct?
That is correct.
Because I could see where that could get fairly spendy, and it would also be really weird to have that short bit of sidewalks in an otherwise fairly rural part of Medford.
Some of the challenges of these is that they're likely going to stay rural for a long time. On this particular section, the east side of the road is, there are development proposals that are being proposed, and so this section on the east side of the road is likely going to be developed to a city standard with curb, gutter, and sidewalk. The west is going to stay, as you see on this photo, open ditches until that redevelops at some time in the future, which that's going to be quite some time, I'm sure.
All right. Other questions or motion?
I move adoption of Council Bill 2025-53.
Second.
Moved by Garrett West, seconded by Nick Card. Any discussion for or against? Okay. Winnie, will you call the roll?
Garrett West,
Yes.
Nick Card,
Yes.
Kevin Keating,
Yes?
John Quinn,
Yes.
Jessica Ayers,
Yes.
Mike Kurlinger,
Yes.
and Kevin Stein.
Yes.
We have 7 yes.
All right. Motion passes. 80.2.
Item 80.2, Council Bill 2025-54, a resolution adopting the City of Medford's Housing Opportunity Fund 2025 funding recommendation.
Staff report. So we're seeing showing the public what was approved?
Yeah.
We'll have a staff report, please. And the people. I'm here for the people. Yeah, it can be.
Sorry. Good evening. It's Michelle King, Planning Director. This evening, we're going to talk about the Housing Opportunity Fund 2025 recommendations. And I'll start with a little bit of an overview. This is the 5th cycle of the HOF, a request for proposals and award cycle. There's $400,000 available. The funds are accumulated from 1/3 of 1% of the residential and commercial permits. It's from the construction excise tax. Your Housing Advisory Committee, the HAC, is the advisory body for all things HOF. And they had several meetings to hear the presentations for the proposals, review their applications, and score the submittals and make a recommendation. Just as a note, the HOF has affordability requirements for both the area median income and affordability periods. So projects that apply for these funds have to both meet one of these area median income. Their clients need to meet these income levels, and the projects need to provide the affordability period. The city received 3 proposals totaling $750,000, so exceeding the amount of the HOF funding balance. 2 proposals were recommended for funding. One had 13 units. One is a 5 to 8 bed transitional supportive housing development. And the number of units that were supplied in the proposals was a big factor to the prioritization. I will note in future years we're going to change our methodology for the RFP process with hopes that we can get a more directed response and have more choices. So HAC developed funding recommendations on March 19th and forwarded a unanimous recommendation. There's 2 projects that were recommended. One is Proud Ground. Proud Ground's New Spirit Village, which had a funding recommendation of $200,000, and this is 100% of their request. The funds are to be used for the reimbursement of SDCs, system development charges, and construction fees and permitting costs. It's tied to phase 5 of the project, which has 13 homes. The total budget for the project is approximately $3.5 million, so there's a lot of investment in this project outside of these funds. It's a land trust model, which provides affordability and perpetuity, and the households will be earning less than 120% of the area median income, and priority is given to Alameda. The intention was for priority to be given to Alameda fire survivors. At this point, it's about 5 years out, but I think they're still prioritizing if they get those applicants. Here's the location for this project. It's at Lozier Lane and Meadows Lane. And you can see some of the initial units have been built in this aerial. The second applicant is Golden Rule Reentry. They also requested $200,000. This is for the acquisition of a home at 26 Newton Street. Their funding request was $350,000. So the recommendation from the HAC was $200,000, so less than what they asked for. So their proposal is to purchase a home for $230,000 and remodel the home with participants in their work experience program to renovate the home at a cost of $149,500 to produce a permanent 5-bed transitional housing facility and up to 8 beds, but at the minimum of 5 beds, with a total project of $379,500. And they're making up the difference between the city's funds from the HOF with a bank commitment. So they have all their funding in place. And Golden Rule Reentry has actually received funds previously from the city. The city awarded them funds from the ARPA Act funding to acquire a similar project home on Orange Street for transitional housing for formerly incarcerated men. This project that they're proposing now is for women that were formerly incarcerated and extremely low income, and includes a workforce development component. And this is red dot is where their proposed home purchase is, near the corner of 8th and Newton. So, one of the things we look at is what these projects will provide. I mean, I think this is obvious, but we've got 5 units, at least 5 units, up to 8 for 30% AMI, and 13 homes at less than 120% AMI. So that's the presentation. Are there any questions?
Yeah, thank you. Jessica.
On the New Spirit Village project, it says that it's phase 5.
Right.
What phase are they on right now?
3. And 4 does not include any residential units. It's a common lot. So they are actually going to Planning Commission with a request to split phase 3 into phase 3A and 3B. So Planning Commission will be hearing that this month. And then they should be completing phase 3 and then go to phase 5. Go ahead.
Follow up real quick. So is this a reimbursement after this occurs?
Right.
Okay.
So they haven't started 3A or proposed 3B. So if
it doesn't occur, the funding does not happen.
The funding does not happen if they don't build phase 5.
Okay. Thank you.
Kevin Stein.
Oh, you were looking that way and you called my name. Okay. Yeah, I have nothing against the Golden Reentry, the work they do in terms of, hey, we got people that need to work their way back into, where they need to be after they've, served their time. I got nothing against that at all. But it's more about the transitional housing. And we've done it before, and I didn't really like it that time either. But when we have the HOF funds, and we can, like, the numbers that you gave us are things that we created, right? Like, we can just get rid of those. I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying we just could get rid of them and greatly open up, the capability for anyone to go for whatever HOF funds we have. But, I mean, as we're looking at it, I think we should, personally, I think we should prioritize either, new housing, like permanent housing, not transitional housing, but permanent housing, or... Well, actually, I guess that's the main thing. I would prefer it go into helping units, like, put more units on the market, whether that be they sell it off to people for, or whatever background they might have, or something of that nature. I mean, I would just personally go that way rather than transitional housing for this funding. I mean, what we're doing now, we're already down that road, and I would recommend we just keep going down. But, you're already looking about what we're doing for the future. But I would, when we have a talk on the council, I would strongly prefer we go with permanent housing with how we utilize these funds.
Thank you for that input. And I think that at the end of last year, there was a council hearing in which there was some priority setting for the HOF funds. I think what might be useful in the future is to put those priorities into the scoring matrix, just as you described. So I will take note of that.
Right. Garrett?
How many phases does New Spirit Village have? Do we know?
7.
7 phases. And can you expand a bit on how the Housing Advisory Commission made its recommendation to us? Did they have lively discussion about these, or did they have, I guess, a secret ballot?
There's no secret ballot. They had presentations from the 3 applicants. The 3rd applicant only had 2 units, and asked for an equitable amount of funds, so they didn't think that one didn't score well. I think they were pretty unanimous in their decision making. I think they had a limited number of applicants, which I think is part of what I'm hearing, that it would have been better if we had more choices.
Totally. Do we have a deadline in which we need to spend these funds? And
No.
Okay.
You could defer the funds and collect them and save them, or a portion of them, for next year, and have a larger bank from your CET tax accumulation. And we could redo the RFP process to be more focused on council goals, so we could do a more robust process. So I have some recommendations to include that as an option.
Mr. Keating, did you have a question?
Yeah, did you have your hand up first? Or? Yes, I did.
And then I got
Can you give me the vote tally? Was there a very small group of HAC members that were there at that meeting where they voted?
I think the vote was unanimous among the HAC. Is that what you're asking?
They had more of a quorum then. I mean, how many people actually?
I think it was, I have to ask Sheila Giorgetti,
Okay, I just
who's
didn't know
here.
if you
I
had
think it
that.
was over 11 people. Do you remember the number of the HAC members?
So on HAC, I think we're at 6 members currently, because we got some vacancies, but I'm not positive on that.
So there were at least 4 that voted for this proposal?
Yeah, everybody voted, and they were all in
Okay.
alignment with each other.
Okay, I must be wrong. I thought there was a smaller number. Thank you.
John Quinn?
First, regarding the transitional housing, you know what I do for a living, and I'm on sending some people to prison for their 3rd or 4th round because they never got with the program. Justly, but that doesn't make it an ideal situation nonetheless. So I'm supportive of transitional housing. I don't know whether it squares or doesn't square with using this particular money. I don't have the background of 10 years with that Mr. Stein does. But in concept, it's a good goal because frankly, it just gets depressing for everyone sending someone over and over and over and over again, sometimes for big numbers, and they still come back. But I think I would just like to know more about them as far as how realistic their plan is with respect to how much their remodeling is going to cost, part one. And then I'd also like to know a little bit more about how successful their program on Orange has been. And how long do people stay? What comes of them afterwards? Things like that. I would have liked more information. I'm generally open to the idea, but I wouldn't have mind knowing more. With respect to New Spirit, I think we're premature. If we're going to go there at all, I think it's too soon. They're still struggling after certainly years of struggling that I've seen on the Planning Commission and now this, now they need to split phase 3 into 2 because I guess they can only do half of it for now. So
Correct.
if they're struggling to get halfway through phase 3 so much that they need to go to the Planning Commission for the 5th time, something like that,
Been a few rounds, yeah.
then I'm really concerned about pre-funding step 5 while they're still pretty seriously struggling to even get halfway through 3 after this amount of time. So the New Spirit would be a good deferral candidate, mainly because I'd like to get a little bit closer to when they're ready to actually use the money before we give them the money, if we give them the money, on something that may never pan out in the first place, which would make a mess.
So I'm just going to interrupt a little bit
Sure.
because we're kind of in the what do we want to do motion, like discussion in the motion. So, and it's I mean I totally get the idea of Kevin did, and I think planning department certainly has the message that we should double check our sort of priorities prior to going out next year. But what you bring up is is the council discussion between what you want to do with this. So if
I hear
your
you.
question is to her, and this is I guess what I'm hearing is, do we think that they can actually execute with this grant funding in a reasonable time? Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Sort of, and mainly it was while we have the benefit of Michelle being able to respond, to say where my thinking is and have her wisdom to say, well, that makes sense because of, that doesn't make sense because of, rather than us discussing after we're done visiting with Michelle.
So what is your question directly to her, do you think?
Are we a little bit early on New Spirit, and do you know everything you need to know about exactly how much the transitional house is going to cost, and can you compare it to the prior program and see what their results are and what we can expect for our money?
So regarding New Spirit, I do think that they may not get to phase 5 in the time frame that we're discussing. They could always come back and reapply for HOF funds when my feeling is by the time they get to phase 5, we're going to have the HOF funds back up if we defer funds. So they could always come back and apply. for those funds a second time when they're closer to phase 5. Regarding Golden Rule reentry, I did have Sam Barnum review their plans and their general costs for remodeling the home. They are also here this evening. I know it's not a public hearing, so you could hear from them if you chose to, but I do think that it does seem reasonable, their proposal, and they have been advocating for it pretty steadily, and it seems like they're ready to go. So, but they are also here if you want to hear from them.
Certainly, Mayor, from my perspective, I wouldn't mind hearing how their prior project went.
And that's fine. So if we're just being specific on that, your concern is whether or not they can deliver with the money that's being offered.
I just want to understand what they've done before and therefore what we would be paying for now. How their results have been and how it's worked out for them in their prior program.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, like, how much information are you looking for?
There you go.
You're just,
Is it worthwhile and ready to go now?
okay. Yeah, you can come down. Yeah.
Great.
This is specific to Golden Rule?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the Golden Rule folks. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you for your time. My name is Abigail Lewis. I'm the founder and executive director of Golden Rule Reentry. This is Paul Sheldon, our senior development director. Last year, Hoff gave us funding for the Orange Street House. It is a transitional house for our men's manufacturing program, which is a workforce development program. It's called the Prison to Prosperity Pipeline. Last year, the 6 gentlemen who went through that program all got associate degrees in manufacturing. They also went to RCC and remained in school, 2 of which are now making straight A's and on their way to becoming engineers. The program has been tremendously successful. Right now, the new cohort is in there having a nutrition class. They're learning to cook healthy meals and do food prep. We teach employability skills, and we expose them to a lot of things in the community, not just how to get a job, but also how to manage their finances. We do credit repair, we do computer basics, and all of that is part of our program that's run out of the Orange Street House. So it's been fabulously successful. Prior to getting the funding from Hoff, we were paying $4,000 a month in rent, and now we're paying a $1,300 mortgage, and it's made our program work. And the last thing I'll say is the Urban Institute of Justice Center says that people who come out of prison who do not find housing are much more likely to reoffend. We all know the housing market is rough and tough here in Medford. These houses are transitional, so you might see 5 beds or 6 or 8 or 10 beds, but they're flipping. So we're helping a lot of people who are coming out of prison have that option to get on their feet with a better life. And our drop-in center is across the street from the Newtown house. So the women living at that house will be able to literally walk across the street and do our programming, which is full spectrum. So I hope does that answer your questions a little bit?
How many people do you have, and how long is the average stay at the Orange House?
At the Orange House, currently it's 1 year. The program is 6 months, but we do give them an additional 6 months to find their next place, and we help them find that. We also do work with second chance housing providers. We have 2 houses and 2 apartments right now. So each one is a little bit different. One of them is an 18-month stay, and we have 2 apartments that's a 6-month only because it's we call it our halfway home program. So it just depends on the needs.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so, and I guess just as a comment, there is a process for this where they have developed their project, presented it to a committee that has been appointed by council, and these are the recommendations of that committee. I completely understand if there's, the balance between reliance upon our committees and our commissions for information and suggestions and recommendations, and then proper spending of the money. But I think we'd need to be a little bit careful about trying to then turn this into a new application process. So if there's some reason that you don't think that you have enough information to move on, I think that can be carried through discussion here, and the subsequent motion you make then. Kevin, did you have a question for
I guess I
finance
do have a
staff?
question for you, or actually, we can modify the proposal and approve one and deny the other, or
Sure.
defer one and deny the other.
Yep.
Defer one and approve the other, actually. So, so what I'd like to do we do that after discussion, or should I make a motion now? Or?
Make a motion. You can make a motion now.
Okay, I would move to modify the resolution, deferring the payment to the New Spirit and approving the payment for the Golden Rule. Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I just think that there have been some questions about whether they're going to follow through, and if they were to follow through, it not being in this cycle anyway. And I think it protects ourselves, and it allows them the freedom to apply again when situation may look better. And so that's why I'm suggesting to defer the 200,000 into the next cycle, and then I'm impressed with Golden Rule's mission. So I think, and we didn't even award them the full amount, so I'm fine with that proposal.
It was John Quinn. John Quinn, you seconded that, correct?
Most definitely.
Yes, Garrett.
I just wanted to clarify the motion. We would be funding Proud Ground at zero and taking that money and banking it for.
Correct.
Okay.
Actually, I drafted one as well. It's on your screen.
Can I just say that I have a little bit of a concern here that we had no hearing that was noticed, and we've allowed the Golden Entry people to essentially testify. We're making a decision as to their grant. Proud Ground wasn't given the same opportunity, and if we deny them their grant without having had the same opportunity to testify as Golden Reentry, I'm afraid we may be getting ourselves into trouble.
Deferring, not denying. Right?
Yep.
Yep, go ahead, Garrett.
Would we need to, I guess, postpone or renotice for next council?
That's what I would prefer to do.
So let me just ask a quick question, because I totally 100% understand what you're saying. Is we've kind of turned this into a little bit of an application process, and that's not, maybe that's a little sketchy. However, this is not necessarily a hearing per se. This is a decision by council on that, which they most certainly can make their own decision on what they want to fund or not
Yes.
fund. But I think what you're saying is not having an opportunity for someone to speak, and one party to speak and the other party to speak. I don't know what you guys want to do about that. Yes.
So the solution to this could be, because it is a reimbursement, if New Spirit never gets there and completes their phases, they're not going to get the money. So we're not just giving it to them now. So I don't know if that makes anyone feel better about this, that they're not going to get it if they don't get to that phase and complete it.
And if they don't get into that phase or complete it, it falls back into the Huff category?
Yeah.
For the next cycle anyway?
Well,
And we haven't
just
agreed-
could you clarify that, because I thought I understood that there are no time limits for the award.
We actually write an agreement with the applicant, and that agreement hasn't been drafted. So I think we can include in the agreement that there's a time frame that these funds need to be used by.
Yes, Quinn.
Yeah, but if you do that, the money's going to be earmarked and can't be given to another program should a more worthy one step forward, whereas if we defer, it puts it back in the hopper and they have to compete again. What if, while that money's earmarked, someone else that is, all of us agree, would do better with the $200,000 comes forward? We're stuck if we earmark. So I continue to agree with Mr. Keating's proposal. I appreciate Councilor Ayers' suggestion, but I'm still with Keating.
Kevin?
So two things. As far as the legal part, I would disagree in part that this is an advisory coming to council. This is not a land use decision. So, and it's wholly within the council, in my opinion, it's wholly within the council purview and how we do things. Is this a little bit different than we have ever done things? Yes, but we are allowed to do certain things, right? as far as it being fair or not, whether the proposal goes forward, I mean, that's open to interpretation, but as far as this being lawful, I'd say it's lawful. I agree with what Councilor Ayers said. You know, this giving the Proud Ground $200,000 doesn't actually mean that they have $200,000 to spend, because the way that we do SDCs now and have for what, 8 years, 6 years now, is you don't pay the SDCs until the end, not at the beginning. So the worst case scenario would be they don't have the project ready and they don't have our $200,000 to then put into a different coffer. You know, they take our money and move it to a different one of our funds. So I would just approve it as presented. If there is not the will for that, then I would say you fit a timeline. But I guess the question is, as we stand now, do they have a timeline within a year? And I'm asking you to speak for them when they're not here.
Yeah.
And so if you're not qualified, if you don't feel you have information on that, then we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say. They are only on 3 and 3A right now. Oh, they haven't even started 3A. They're asking to divide 3, so they will be building 3A. So, I can't give you a firm answer, but it seems like Phase 5 is a little ways away, not imminent this year. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Card.
How difficult is it for us to decide to allocate these funds, I don't know, in 3 months, for example? If we decide not to allocate the funds today for this particular project, could we come back in 3 months and allocate those? Do we have to wait until the following cycle? My understanding is that we have a lot of flexibility here as council. We can kind of do whatever we want. So I just want to make sure that understanding is based in reality, not
I would
my own
ask the
fantasy.
city attorney, but I think you could allocate some of the funds now and come back in 3 months with a progress check on Proud Ground and make a decision in 3 months on the remaining funds. So.
Then to me, I think it does make sense to not deliver the funds. If they can come back and show that they're more timely, then we give it to them. And if if they can't, then we have the funds available for something else. I mean, I don't like the idea of earmarking funds for a maybe project, especially when these funds are relatively scarce. And as we know, we were well oversubscribed with these dollars. So,
Mr. Curlinger.
Just to clarify, the application process for HOF funds is closed for the year, so that no one else could come back and say, we have a project we'd like to apply for now? Or is there flexibility in that timing as well?
Well, we had an RFP, so we had a time frame for the RFP that went out, request for proposals, and that concluded. It doesn't mean we couldn't do a mini RFP if these funds aren't allocated and reboot the process after your 3-month check-in. I'm just imagining. We could also save them and keep them for a larger project for next year.
So if I'm just going to restate back where we're at, it is to approve the recommendation for Golden Compass?
Golden
Rule?
Rule Reentry, yeah.
and essentially deny the application for the other one.
I said defer, but if you choose deny.
What does defer, and maybe what does defer mean? It means they're approved but not approved, or?
That's a good point. By that I meant hold it in abeyance for a year, but if they actually came back early and said they were ready to go, we could decide at that time. I can see how that might cause confusion at this moment.
Yeah.
Though.
So
let's refer to deny. Thank you.
Okay. So if you deny, that makes it whatever. That makes it pretty easy. You're funding one but not another, with a finding that based on our understanding of the ability to use the funds, it seems inappropriate to obligate them today. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
So I think if he's going to amend it, John, are you going to second the amended motion?
We're just denying it essentially without. We would essentially be denying it without prejudice. If they want to come back, we can reevaluate.
With the, we've decided the interpretation of defer is denied, correct? Of the original motion.
Say that again. I didn't hear.
The interpretation of defer is to deny.
But without prejudice, because they can always come back to us again if they have a better timeline, see where it takes us.
Let's keep it simple and say yes, defer, amend, deny.
Yeah, you can't, defer is different. Deny. You're saying give money to them, the wonderful people that came and doing good work, and then deny any money going towards the other project.
Correct.
That's where we are.
Okay.
But we're not saying they can never ask again for that thing.
Of course.
You'd have to add that into the amendment, which would be pretty crazy.
Which I just said without prejudice. That's what that means.
So I'm clear, was the idea they would come back in 3 months with a report still on the table? No. Okay.
No, I mean, I'll say this. So we were kind of squishy on this whole defer means defer without prejudice, and if we can just, or deny without prejudice. Meaning, you can come back and reapply for this when they're closer, and it makes more sense to obligate. Because that's really what I'm hearing, the reluctance is, we are setting this, we are allocating this money to somebody who may not be able to use it for 2 or 3 years. Why not? They can come back and apply when they're ready to use the funds. That's what I'm hearing and understanding. Okay. So, if there's no other questions, if there's no other comments, discussion, Mike?
Are we good? Or do we need an amendment to the motion that's seconded, and then we need to vote on the amendment and then vote on the original motion?
No, there's no amendment.
No amendment.
There's just a motion that is, the motion is an amended, what was in the proposal.
If we're going to argue that defer and deny mean two different things, a motion to defer was seconded, and now that motion
Kevin,
has been amended.
will you withdraw your motion and restate?
Yes.
With the permission of the second. So just say yes.
Okay. I move that we modify the resolution as presented to approve Golden Rule and to deny Proud Ground.
And the second? Anybody second?
Second.
Okay. Should be clear. Yes? Perfect. Yeah, one comment.
Also, I just want to point out, this is like, just on the concern about, is this fair or whatever, Proud Ground had the same opportunity to show up here, and so I'm not super worried about that, because it's not like this was a secret. This was their opportunity, and the fact that they're not here doesn't bother me in the slightest.
Yes, Kevin.
I will be voting no, not because I don't support the presentation we heard, but because I don't agree with not funding the other project. But based on commentary, there's no point in making an amendment to fund the full thing. So I'll just make my no vote and move on with life.
Okay. Winnie, can you call the roll, please?
Kevin Keating,
Yes.
John Quinn,
Yes.
Mike Kurlinger,
Yes.
Kevin Stein,
No.
Garrett West,
Yes.
Nick Card,
Yes.
and Jessica Ayers.
Yes.
We have 6 yes and 1 no.
Okay. Motion passes as motioned, I guess. Sweet. So at 80.2, it is nearly 8. Does anyone need a break? No. Jessica, would you like to take a break? No. 90.1. We just got done with 80.2. 90.1 is Council Bill 2025-55. It's a resolution adopting the 4 supplemental budget for the 2023-25 biennium, resulting in a, I believe that says $21,004,200 increase in appropriations for the biennium.
Ready to roll? Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ryan Martin, your Chief Financial Officer. I never thought numbers would be less complicated, but here we go. So this is a normal thing that we do every 6 months for new council members. We do a budget amendment because there are things that happen throughout the biennium that we are not able to always plan for. So an example is a large part of this is for the build project. We don't know always how much we're going to spend in a biennium or how much we're going to complete of a project. So there is an impact of just over $21 million. This is the fourth and last supplemental budget of the biennium, since we do them every 6 months. Not every 3 months like we used to, so you're welcome for that one. It does affect 9 departments and 21 funds. It's required to have a public hearing when any funds increase by over 10%, in which there are 7 of those. So I'm just going to go through those really briefly. First one, the Police Public Safety Fund. The revenue increases by $949,000. Goes to personnel, services, and benefits, and also to transfers and contingencies. The reason for this one was that we were recording some of the new police officers that were added through the police strategic plan in the general fund, and we were transferring money from the public safety fee into there. Due to the wording of the code, we actually have to do all of that in the police public safety fund. So we're just moving the personnel into there, and that's why this is being recorded like that. Next 6 funds, tons of synergy with these ones. They're all public works funds. They are for the build project. So you can see the increases to revenue, and then the majority of the increase goes to the capital improvement projects, which is for the build project. So this is our storm drain utility fund, increasing the capital improvement project for the build, for the Foothill Road build grant project by about $2.8 million. With the street SDC fund by about $2.2 million. Sewer collection quite a bit less at $200,000. Storm drain SDC fund just under $175,000. Gas tax fund by quite a bit more at about $7 million. And street improvement fund, which is typically where we record a lot of our grant revenue, and then the project for that grant of about $4.5 million. Any questions for me?
Any questions? All right, I don't see any.
Public hearing.
Yeah, this is a public hearing, and I can't see. All right, seeing no other, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak on the subject, please come forward. Please identify yourself for the record before speaking, which means I have to read a bunch of instructions if you do that. All right, seeing none, the public hearing is closed. I would entertain a motion.
I move to adopt Council Bill 2025-55.
Second.
So I have a motion from Garrett West, second from Jessica Ayers. Any discussion in support or denial or opposition? Seeing none, Winnie, will you call the roll?
Garrett West,
Yes.
Jessica Ayers,
Yes.
Kevin Keating,
Yes.
Nick Card,
Yes.
Mike Kurlinger,
Yes.
Kevin Stein,
Yes.
and John Quinn.
Yes.
We have 7 yes.
90.2, Mr. Moreland.
Council Bill 2025-52, an ordinance approving an amendment to the Medford Comprehensive Plan to adopt the 2024 Park Strategic Plan into the public facilities and the conclusions, goals, policies, and implementation strategies elements of the Medford Comprehensive Plan.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Carla Palladino with your Planning Department. This evening, we're looking at a comprehensive plan amendment. We're trying to wrap the Parks and Recreation Strategic Plan into our comprehensive plan. So just as kind of an overview, I think the graphic kind of sets the stage. So we have a comprehensive plan. It touches a lot of different departments that have different kind of chapters or elements. The public facilities element houses the documents that are our Parks and Recreation Strategic Plan. It also houses things like sewer, water, law enforcement, things like that. So that's kind of one chapter. We have separate things like the housing element, the economic element, things like that. They're separate components. They all have specific plans. And then basically summaries that get put into the comp plan that refer to some of the general information from those plans, and then references those documents by reference. So the two pieces that we're amending this evening include the public facility element, incorporating the 2024 Parks and Recreation Strategic Plan, specifically amending the section in the public facility element regarding the parks section, so making sure that it now matches the new document. And then we have a separate policies, goals, and implementation strategy element that basically takes those from each of the different chapters and kind of puts them into one big document so you can see them and reference them pretty quickly. So this application this evening is a Type 4 legislative application. The Planning Commission did review the proposal and made a recommendation for you in May, and the City Council is the final approving authority. The approval criteria from 10.220 sub 2 redirects you to the comprehensive plan. There are multiple criteria on the screen. Those have been addressed in the council report in detail. Those are found to either be satisfied or not applicable this evening. So in terms of the plan background, so the 2024 Parks and Recreation Strategic Plan was an effort that the Parks Department undertook in the winter of 2023. Over a year's time, they went through a large public process. They went through, different analyses and looking at all the different parks and assets and making sure that we had kind of updated information about what we were going to be proposing in the future over the next 10 years. So that document itself was approved by resolution in December of 2024. And then just in terms of kind of the overall plan, it's noted in the parks website. It talks about, like I said, system-wide needs, so things that are, upgrades that we want to make to certain parks. It actually lists them very nicely. You can kind of see them in a pretty good comprehensive fashion. It outlines, again, the goals and policies that we had from the prior plan and updates them to reflect kind of future goals. The public facilities element is specifically Exhibit B that was provided to you, and really this looks at just kind of updating the text, making sure that we're referencing again the latest document, the 2024 master plan. It updates the demographics, the maps and graphics and all those kind of things, and then updates the capital projects matrix. The conclusions, goals, policies element, again, it just refers to the kind of conclusions of the park element and provides those goals, policies, and implementation measures in just a separate chapter of the comp plan. And you can see the 6 goals on the right of the screen. There were 7 in the prior plan. The 6 are kind of just a melding of those together. And this evening, with approval of this comprehensive plan, you will be checking a box on one of those policies that will be adopted. The Planning Commission did hear this proposal in May, and they did vote 7 with 2 extensions to favorably recommend. Staff would recommend that you approve the ordinance as presented. Thank you.
All right, questions for staff? Miss Jessica?
I want to know how Rich Rosenthal feels about the removal of the word leisure from this plan.
You'll have to ask him.
Kevin?
I hate to nitpick, but I just got a weird question.
Okay, I'll try and answer it.
Exhibit B,
Yes.
you mentioned a 10-year period from 25 to 35. That replaces old text of a 10-year period between 16 and 25?
That's bad math, isn't it? That's why we're striking it.
Okay. Well, no, I wasn't quite sure. I mean, 25 to the end of 35 is 11 years. I don't know how you...
25 to 35, isn't that still 10? No?
Right.
Oh, you're saying 24?
25 and 35.
Fence problem.
Oh, well, by the time 35 rolls around, we'll have already updated it and we'll have a different,
Okay,
we'll have another 10-year
It's a
marker.
discrepancy. I just wanted to just take a look at it or something. I don't know.
It's supposed to be a 10-year plan. With it being
Other
updated before it
questions?
expires. Good
All right.
questions.
Okay, we'll see no other questions. I will open the public hearing. At this point, anyone wishing to speak on the subject, please come forward. Again, there are instructions involved if you do. All right. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Okay, motion. Kevin.
I move to approve Council Bill 2025, TAC 5-2.
Second.
I've got Kevin Stein with the motion, actually Nick Card with the second. Any comments, Kevin?
Nope.
Anyone else? I'll make a comment, something that I noticed in a lot of the conclusions. They incorporated quite a bit of some of the public feedback that came out of the surveys in regards to public safety, and I just appreciated staff kind of basically listening to the community and making sure that that got incorporated. So, Winnie, will you call the roll?
Kevin Stein,
Yes.
Nick Card,
Yes.
Jessica Ayers,
Yes.
Kevin Keating,
Yes.
John Quinn,
Yes.
Garrett West,
Yes.
and Mike Curlinger.
Yes.
We have 7 yes.
All right, that passes, and we are on to council business. In the meantime, I do have a proclamation to read. Is everything good down there? So this is for Pride Month. Whereas the month of June is recognized as a time to honor the dignity, resilience, and contributions of individuals who have historically faced discrimination based on who they love or how they express themselves. And whereas our city is committed to fostering a culture of respect, compassion, and unity, where every person is valued and celebrated for their unique humanity. And whereas Pride Month serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of acceptance, the strength found in diversity, and the ongoing pursuit of equality and justice for all. And whereas Medford and surrounding communities will host a variety of inclusive and celebratory events throughout June, including Medford Pride 2025 at Rogue X on Saturday, June 28th. Now therefore, I, Michael Zarazinski, Mayor of the City of Medford, do hereby proclaim the month of June as Pride Month. This goes on to council business. Mr. Card, do you want me to defer to
I'll defer
your,
to the vice president since I was a delinquent council president today.
Oh, boy. Okay, the first item of business was we discussed the medical school study. We're starting to distribute that study to possible interested candidates and are scheduling meetings to talk to interested parties about participating. We also discussed a proposal from Trip Umbach to do negotiations for us. Number 2, there are a group of investors looking to, exploring a number of commercial development opportunities. So Rob has been meeting with these individuals. Number 3, talking about doing a potential study session with the Medford Water Commission. We discussed the need, if we're going to do that, to have a set agenda and desired outcomes or action items from that instead of just a study session. We're going to discuss the TLT measure tonight, and really the point of that is just supporting council goals regarding economic opportunities, downtown revitalization. We're simply looking at potential funding sources to support the Medford 2040 vision and increase livability of Medford with that. And then we also talked about next month in July is the city-sponsored Chamber Forum Luncheon. We'll have a couple tables there. We'll be the presenter. Rob's going to do a nice intro on city projects that we have going, a little presentation, and then we'll go directly into a panel kind of similar to the town hall style. Kevin?
What day is that?
It would be the second Monday in July, whatever that is. 14th? 14th, July 14th. All right, thanks.
Are we all attending that? Is that what you're saying?
We're all welcome. We have seats.
I mean, Nick and I have good seats.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the perspective. I hope John Vile will leave some hard hats and safety vests behind for us.
I nominate John Vile to stand in for me.
So with that, before we move on, committee reports. I know John Quinn attended something.
I did. Zach Smith and I last week both attended the Pitch Latino get together. It was actually a wonderful, wonderful get together. There were, I would say, north of 50, maybe as many as 70 people there involved in businesses, Latino businesses. There's a lot of interest in bringing business to Medford. They're having a get-together in Portland. We're invited to that to help persuade, and tell people the good stories about Medford. I noticed from one of our materials that the Latino population in Medford is 16%, so it's a very serious community. The way that the format was done is it's essentially kind of a Shark Tank, and a lot of business people got a chance to do a presentation about their businesses. And two young ladies who own Cafe Mestiza, which is on West McAndrews. Kevin, you recognize it. It's near to the wharf. And they've survived their most difficult first year in business, and they're doing great. And they got a $5,000 reward for giving an excellent presentation. So it was very heartening to see, and I think Zach would feel the same way, that there's a lot of small businesses developing in that community. There's a lot of people wanting to come here to do that. It was a very vibrant group, and it was very well attended.
Great. Other committee reports, Mr. Card.
So just a couple things. We talked last week about the transportation package, which is currently moving through the state legislature. That is changing literally by the day, so there's possibly going to be some more. I just wanted to give an update on that, since in theory the legislature will be gone before we sit together again. So that is something that I would encourage all of us to pay attention to as the legislature continues to move through. On a specific committee, RVMPO is meeting next week. And so I just wanted to bring this to your attention again, since it'll be a couple weeks. There have been some issues with RVMPO, and in terms of sort of staff responsiveness, the document that ultimately is produced by RVMPO sets the kinds of projects that, sets out the specific projects that we can seek federal funding for. So this is an incredibly important policy document when it comes to transportation and infrastructure spending using federal dollars in our community. And so we are rapidly approaching when that document needs to be submitted, and we're struggling a little bit. Rick Dyer, as the county commission representative to the MPO, and myself as the representative to the MPO, sent a letter to RVCOG, which is the governing body of the MPO staff, specifically expressing our displeasure with what's going on with the staff. We're getting agendas hours before our meeting. That is not okay, especially when we're dealing with stuff that is as critical as this and as relatively slow moving as this. These kinds of policy documents are things that take time to put together, and I would love to be able to bring our agendas to us to be able to talk as a council, so we have a consistent, unified voice as we move towards how we're dealing with stuff at the MPO. And if I'm getting an agenda an hour before, it's like I called John, and John's going I just read this, just got this too, Nick. I haven't even had a chance to read it. So just wanted to let you know, in case you hear some hullabaloo in the community, that Medford is causing problems with the MPO. It's an important thing, and we've got to make sure that our voice and our community's voices are represented, because that's our ticket to getting access to real money for the kinds of projects our community needs, like South Stage as an example.
Great. Kevin?
Longtime Medford residents would know that the Cafe Mestiza used to be Action Video.
Oh, yeah.
I lived in that area as a kid, walked there.
The little tags on the movies.
Yes.
Take 'em and go up.
Yeah. They also, if you rented it, you could shoot the basket and you get a free rental as well. Yeah, I was, those that follow the legislature, it's tough business. They voted, I think, yesterday to cut homeless prevention, housing and homeless prevention services by 80%, which is interesting as we're talking to Bill here today about the importance of that. I mean, cuts have to be made, but man, that's rough. Went to Howard School Park for Parks and Rec. Howard School Park will be opening next week. Myself and at least Garrett will be there. It's very, it's adjacent to the school itself, so it has one fence and then you have an open area, and it is very nice. It is a very nice facility, so everyone should check that out when you can. And then this Saturday is the summer solstice run. So there's a 5K and a 10K. Starts at 6:30 at Hawthorne Park. Everyone is invited to attend. I will be there. Thank you.
Yes, Jessica.
Okay. Rob and I attended the So Ready monthly board meeting on the 10th. Just some highlights. The peer grant for $500,000 was approved for economic development in Phoenix and talent. As far as the executive director search goes, we hired another firm to take care of that. We now have at least 26 candidates, and they expect to start doing interviews in mid-July. So much better than the first turnout that we had. We did do a bunch of fairly important approvals at that meeting. We did approve the draft of the new comprehensive economic development strategy plan. So a lot of work went into that, and I think it turned out pretty good. We approved the revolving loan fund plan and the 2025-2026 So Ready budget. So productive meeting.
Great. Anything else? Just as a, I guess, fill in, I was at Medford Cruise last Saturday. Actually, not the cruise. I didn't go to the cruise this time, but I did the car show because they do like a mayor's award for it. I'd never been to the car show before, and I was like kind of impressed. There's like there's 550 cars. And I'd seen it in the cruise, you know, but you kind of start to lose track. It's a lot of cars, particularly if you have to walk around and then try to pick what is your favorite. So I came up with a 41 Continental, but oddly, and I didn't get a chance to tell them this, my honorable mention was this lifted, tricked out smart car. It was awesome. So at any rate, that was up there. It seems tippy. I don't know, did anyone go to Savor Southern Oregon? I heard that was a great event.
Oh, TJ did.
TJ went. Yep, I heard that was great. And then I did have some meetings today with just kind of community outreach with La Clinica and some downtown merchants. So that's what I've been up to. All right, staff reports, Mr. Field. To be turned over to our illustrious Ryan.
Ryan Martin again, Chief Financial Officer. My last presentation until our first of 2 MIRA meetings. So for the TLT measure, just to explain a little bit of a summary what this is, the motion that's requested this evening is to direct staff to prepare a resolution to take a TLT increase to the ballot. So this motion itself does not refer anything to the voters. Just want to point that out. The TLT was last increased from 9 to 11% in 2020. It does take 2 actions, so the voters have to approve an increase, and then council also has to vote to increase the rate after that. So our current TLT allocation, the goal of this originally was to create kind of a synergistic approach to this, and with 41% of the TLT going to the general fund. This changed back in 2020 when it was increased, the TLT was increased from 9 to 11%. The general fund portion helps to pay for the operations of lithium and driveway fields, and also the management of some of our recreational programs that we have. 34% goes to the Park Improvement Fund, and a lot of that goes towards turf replacement. We also take 5% of all of the revenue we generate at lithium driveway fields into a separate fund for turf replacement. We like to keep the fields very nice to keep people coming here. So that's the portion for the Park Improvement Fund, and then 25% goes to Travel Medford as our destination marketing organization. In 2024, there was about $6.3 million that was collected in TLT revenue. Just to go over the timing really quick for this. Tonight, we're looking for direction to staff, as I mentioned, to prepare a resolution for July 16th. And that would be a formal approval to send this to the ballot. And then August 15th is the last day to file with the county, and November 4th is the election. Happy to answer any questions, or here is a potential motion directly from the AIC that Eric Mitten provided.
Questions? Mr. Curlinger. Mr. Stein.
I move to direct staff to prepare documents necessary to refer to the electors the issue of increasing TLT by an amount to be specified by council officers at a later date.
Second.
Would you like to speak to that, Kevin?
I guess I have a question. So it says council officers instead of council. So describe this process to me. How are council officers doing this rather than the council as a whole?
Great question. So I took that from the AIC, but I believe that it's because there's not an amount that's set yet, and I believe that the goal was to have that amount set because we don't have time to set that at a separate meeting, and so council officers would recommend that percentage, and then on the 16th of July, council as a whole would approve it.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Curlinger?
Yeah, it's worth commenting. It's like a fairly bureaucratic process. And so we have a really cool goal in mind. We don't know if it's all going to come together. If we don't set the groundwork for the ballot initiative in November, we can't do it at all. So in conversations we've had, we know there's some moving pieces. We know we don't have all the details yet for exactly how this might be utilized. So all we're doing is being prepared in case a really good opportunity comes our way. And this could lead to really significant revitalization and opportunity. It could also just lead to, we gave it a shot, didn't work out, and we moved on. And I had a conversation today. I know TLT is being looked at by the state as well. So at least we're trying to use it for tourism and not other things. But I just want to know, like, this isn't taken lightly, but this also isn't actually taking any definitive steps at this point.
Nick, did you want to say something? And then Garrett.
I mean, just to Mike's point, right? It's like there's lots of off ramps if we decide that this doesn't go forward, but there's only one on ramp, and that is now. But I think it is important to stress, what are we looking at here? I take very seriously that TLT money is not money to be spent for non-tourism related purposes. And so the opportunity that we have before us is a really unique and interesting one that does bridge a really cool cross-section of downtown revitalization, of bringing in tourism-related facilities, of bringing in community enhancement facilities at a scale that we don't really see in our community. I'm being vague in some of this sense because there's a lot of stuff that's still moving behind the scenes that we can't give any specifics towards, but suffice to say, if this opportunity doesn't come to fruition, it doesn't come to fruition. And I don't think any one of us will be feeling super compelled to find ways to spend this money unnecessarily. Talking with my fellow councilors, I think we all share that same commitment to TLT being used for tourism-related purposes. And so, but I also won't sit by and let an opportunity pass us up just because we can't have all the details firmed up. So let's keep at it, and if it falls apart, so be it, and then we'll pull out on one of the many off-ramps we have.
Garrett?
Yeah, I've also read HB 2977, which is proposing to increase the state lodging tax. And I want to make clear that I do think it's important that we understand that legislation in comparison to whatever we send to the voters. I've had, at this time, many hours of discussions with local hotel operators, and I know some of the other council members have as well. And I want to make also clear to our local hotel operators that we hear you. We know the lodging industry has been through some ups and downs in the past few years, and we understand that any potential changes to the TLT have real impacts to you, to your businesses, and to your families. You're a key pillar to our economy and our community, and you deserve a seat at the table. And I think all of us would agree that we want to continue hearing from our local hotel operators. And as we consider any possible changes, we need to make sure that we hear them, include their concerns, ideas and experiences, and to ultimately make sure that this is a conversation and not a decision by council alone. But I do agree that our focus needs to be on what makes Medford's economy and our community strong. We can't control everything. We can't control the global economy or the weather, but we can put the tools in place to seize important opportunities when they come about. So I just wanted to make that clear that we very much value our hotel partners. Thank you.
Nope, no more discussion? Winnie, can you call the roll, please?
Kevin Stein,
Yes.
Mike Curlinger,
Yes.
John Quinn,
Yes.
Garrett West,
Yes.
Jessica Ayers,
Yes.
Nick Card,
Yes.
and Kevin Keating.
Yes.
We have 7 yes.
All right. Got the direction. Mr. Field, anything else? Okay. Anything else for the good order up here? I'm going to make one note, which is way back when, 10 years ago, and we've been kind of doing this where we, consolidate committees and do things. What it was at one point in time is there was a council liaison to commissions, such that when these kind of issues come up, and this is, I guess I want to point out, I mean, you get very much concerned, are we spending the money the right way here? What happens? I don't know who these people are. But that's one of the downsides, by the way, of not staffing commissions and not being there, is that you do not get, number one, sort of a council presence to say, here's the priorities that I understand from council, and the next is then carrying it back. So something to think about as we're kind of either revamping or changing that. And maybe there would be appropriate times for council members to attend, maybe like a HAC or a HOF meeting where people are deciding monies. Something to think about.
Mike's on the hack.
What can I do for you?
At risk of throwing myself under the bus here, I'm the council liaison for HAC. And I didn't chime in because I felt like it had been reiterated multiple times that it was a unanimous decision by the committee that we appointed. So I felt it would be redundant, but I am the HAC liaison.
That's fine. Did you go to the meeting that they were at?
Huh?
In discussion?
Huh?
Okay. That would have been helpful to, that's when you can add some color to the discussion as to what was heard.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do understand what you're saying. I felt it would have been reiterating. We already knew it had been a unanimous decision. So I didn't feel like, but I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
And my voice would have added to that, so I'll get it.
All right. That's it. We're adjourned. 8:22.
Mirror meeting 8:28.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion about the budget? Seeing nothing about the budget. Rennie, please call the roll.
Nick Card,
Yes.
Jessica Ayers.
Yes.
Kevin Keating,
Yes.
Mike Kurlinger,
Yes.
John Quinn,
Yes.
Kevin Stein.
Yes.
Garrett West.
Yes.
And Michael Sarazinski.
Yes.
We have 8 yes.
Thank you. Any board business? We have a study session, so that's probably going to be our board business. Director staff reports. Seeing none. Proposition remarks. Seeing none. Anything for the good order? Seeing none. This meeting ends at 8:33.
That might be a record.
All right. We are now no longer in a Mira board meeting. We are now in a Mira study session. We'll turn it over to, it's here. It says it's like project. Hang on. I think it's written down somewhere. It's not written down anywhere. Project. What's that?
Project Gadfly, that's my new title.
All right,
Project
you have the
Specialist.
floor.
Thank you. Good evening. Happy solstice coming up on Saturday. So we've got 6 agenda items that I want to talk to you about. 3 of them have to do with existing projects, and 3 have to do with ideas that have come floated up that I need to float to you to see if you all want to have some conversation about them and see them in more detail. But before we get started, I do want to give you a quick update. Trevor Williams and I have been drilling down on the capital fund track. I suddenly remembered that back in 2020, we had some additional lease income from the property on Central that was not reflected in that, so we added that in. It's an extra $35,000 that is entered under additional cash. The other thing that we made an adjustment to is that the board originally allocated $950,000 for sidewalk installation in Liberty Park. Of that amount, we have only spent $397,000 to date. That is in addition to $250,000 that was secured by Representative Wallen that came in. So we've spent more than $400,000, but we offset some of that with her money. So there was a balance of unused funds in that Liberty Park allocation for $552,000. We have moved that and basically said that's now in the Manzanita project. One of the reasons being that we did not get the $1 million Safe Routes to School grant that would have paid for that portion of the sidewalk work on the Manzanita project. So what this essentially does is we're kind of moving that around, and it throws that $550,000 to unallocated cash balance. So our unallocated cash balance is now at 607. Any questions about that? It's just mainly accounting, and we'll continue to look at that as we go to future meetings. Okay, I'm sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Kurlinger.
Sorry, just to clarify, your note says it was moved to the Manzanita Street reconstruction, but then you just said it was moved to unallocated cash.
Well, what I mean is that we had 950 for sidewalks. We're going to take that 550 and put that to Manzanita. We had 2.3 million allocated for Manzanita, but we don't need the 2.3 because we already had the $500,000. So it all gets dumped down into unallocated cash balance. Any other questions?
Yeah, I guess I do actually. If I'm taking away 400 from 950, I get 550, right?
Yep.
But you said there was extra money from Kim Wallen somehow. Where is that?
Yeah, at the it's already been expended. She had an allocation of $250,000 of ARPA that she gave to the city specifically for Liberty Park sidewalks at the very beginning of the project. We spent that money first, then we spent the Mura money, and this is the balance of what remains of the
Right,
Mura
so
money.
we spent a total of 650 on the sidewalk.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Dolores Ware Apartments Project. This is our property on Central Avenue to the north of Les Schwab. I'll try and give a concise history of this. We have been in a option agreement with Rubicon Edlin JV, which is a joint venture LLC between Rubicon Investments and Edlin and Company of Portland. They have been doing all the work on trying to get this project off the ground and making application to OHCS for 4% LIHTC money in combination with State of Oregon LIFT funds to do an affordable housing project on this site. They applied in 2022, were not successful. This is very competitive funds. They did not get funded in 2022. 2023, they were not funded as well. 2024, there was no 4% LIHTC available in the state, so there was no application pool to apply for. And then it reemerged in 2025, and so they submitted for that funding this year. In March, they informed us that they have withdrawn the application for funding in the current cycle for a whole host of reasons. Now, first of all, OHCS completely revamped their process for the application and awarding of LIHTC and LIFT money. And in the course of that, it has kind of morphed over the months. And in March, they told everybody that you had to have basically a shovel-ready project by November, and you had to close on any funding that was awarded this year by the end of November. But they weren't going to make a funding commitment in a timely basis, so Rubicon Needland said, for us to be able to even, I mean, it would be Herculean to meet that time frame for one, because it's not just architecture and building permits, it's the finance and the tax credit equity syndication and all that. So that was a pretty heavy lift. But it would cost $1 million to come out of pocket to prepare that package with no guarantee of funding. And they just said, as far as our company is concerned, that's a pre-development risk that we're not willing to incur. I did ask, I said, well, you know, would it make sense for us to talk about maybe sharing that pre-development risk if it was worth pursuing? And they said, well, we wouldn't recommend that the Mira board participate in that pre-development risk either. Okay, so no funding this year. Last year, we amended our option agreement that said if you don't get funded in 2025, the board has a unilateral right to just terminate the option agreement in its entirety, and we go our separate ways. And in fact, Rubicon Edelin, in their notice to us of withdrawal of the application, recommends that the board terminate our option agreement. It's important to point out that while there's no funding prospect this year, they do not see a viable funding prospect in 2026. I don't think it's going to get any better. And given what's happening in Washington, we don't even know if LIHTC is going to survive the year. So there's so much uncertainty in the economy and uncertainty about the process that Oregon has for awarding these funds. So they would not be interested in applying again next year. So at this juncture, the board has a unilateral right to go ahead and terminate the agreement. There's nothing pressing to take action, and it would require a resolution of the board in a formal meeting to do so. But you need to be aware that, you know, we're not going to be progressing with Rubicon Edelin on the Dolores Huerta project, much to my dismay.
So stopping there, is there any, is everyone okay with moving forward to, at a future board meeting, having a resolution terminating the agreement, seeing sufficient support?
We can bring that forward in July.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Second part of that, as you're relating to budget. So in front of us, we had a $4.2 million matching grant. So would we then be moving that to unallocated?
Or you could either move it to unallocated, or you could reallocate it to something else. Okay. And the allocation is, it's always kind of a soft thing. It's sort of like it's an earmark. And I'll get to the question of the 4.2 in a minute, if you don't mind.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so the first question now is, all right, well, so what are we going to do with this property, right? What are the alternative development scenarios that you want to pursue and that staff should be working on? We bought this property expressly because we thought it was a good multifamily housing site. And, you know, it has, let me just jump forward because I do have a site here. It has a 20,000 square foot warehouse on it at the north end there at 727, but it's 3¼ acres, and it's hard to come by a parcel that large in downtown. Rubicon Edelin was planning on tearing down that warehouse, but we had looked at alternative uses for that For those of you who were on the board back then, we had an agreement, or we were pursuing a potential agreement with Medford School District for a career technical education facility here for construction training. They spent some money to analyze that, but it didn't go forward. So the first question is, we had a policy framework of pursuing housing on this site. Is that still the board's preference? And that is housing, whether it is affordable, workforce, market rate, or some special use housing that could be done. One of the things that has emerged recently is that with the momentum and positive reception around the idea of the medical education program coming to Medford, they are going to need dedicated housing to serve that medical student population. And I believe it's projected to be about 80 students for the first 2-year program, or they grow into that.
I don't think it's quite that many, but it's still a considerable number.
Yep.
At least 40 and potentially quite a bit more. So and that's a TBD based on our discussions with OHSU.
So that's kind of a unique opportunity on the horizon, that we have some resources available to us that we could allocate to support that effort, which I think would be well worth considering and running some numbers on. I think it would be a fairly straightforward housing proposal, because it would most likely be a developer coming in and doing a market rate project and master leasing it to the medical school program entity for whatever period of time their initial lift was. So I think that really has some great attraction and legs. Alternately, there is also, I think, some opportunity, if you wanted to continue with the affordable housing concept, is to talk with the Housing Authority of Jackson County. They have a different way that they go about getting their money, which also comes from OHCS. They use 9% LIHTC. They have a very successful track record in funding those projects. They actually looked at this site before we did and thought it was a decent site. It had certain environmental characteristics that were going to cause them to have to do a little brain death. We've done that instead. And so we could approach them to see if they'd like to take a look at it, if you would like to pursue an alternative affordable strategy for this site. That would be another option available to us. If you choose to expand it beyond housing, I will tell you that there are 3 sets of issues that the city faces from a facility standpoint that would be worth at least having on the table for consideration. One is facilities needs more storage than what we have available at the operations center. 2, Medford Police Department has a need for better police evidence storage and car impoundment lot. And thirdly, there's the long-range question about where is a future downtown fire station going to be sited. This site actually has some real advantages as a potential fire station site. You can get onto Central immediately, you can go up Maple to get to Riverside, and there's an easement coming south out of the property that puts you directly onto Jackson. So it's a pretty good central city location, and that could be stacked with other things. It could be stacked with MPD, it could be stacked with, we could even stack that with housing if you wanted. So we've got a pretty broad plate of things here to consider, and we'll need direction from the board about where you would like us to take the analysis and the information that you would like to have to make a decision about how we move forward with offering this property for redevelopment.
So this is a good example that it's not easy to spend money. It's just a mirror of money. It's just not easy to spend because you use the money to try to get capital investment to get projects forward. And unfortunately, we've had 2 pretty strong ideas come forward that the Mira board has liked and pursued, and unfortunately, neither has come to pass. So the question before us is, do we try to go maybe short range and say, hey, make it housing like the previous intent was, and then maybe we have some sideboards on what that housing could be. Maybe it's market rate instead of lower income. We could try to farm it out in a certain way and see if there's action. We could look at one of the ideas here we can leave it pretty open-ended and just say, hey, we have land, and see what comes to us, and pursue that as a board, and see if there's something of interest that maybe we're not thinking about today. Mr. Keating.
Conceivably, we could sell it on the open market, couldn't we?
Right, we could make it surplus and then sell it to the highest bidder.
Do you think we did?
If you were to sell it, you have to sell it under the terms of the urban renewal plan. It has to be subject to a disposition and development agreement, and it has to be in furtherance of the plan objectives. So whether you specify the use, it must conform with the goals and objectives of the plan. All of our dispositions are subject to the plan.
And we purchased this property, right?
Correct.
For how much?
All in, we're at, purchase was 1.725.
Is it worth more than that in the open market if we were to meet all those stipulations?
Part of that is dependent upon whether the warehouse has asset value to somebody or not. If the warehouse is not an asset, it's a liability, and it discounts the price because somebody has to get rid of it.
Mr. Curlinger.
I don't want to be dismissive of any work that was done before I was on, but here you took us around to all the different Mura-owned properties, which was wildly insightful. Personally, I felt like this seemed like a really awkward location for infill housing. It didn't feel like a natural spot for it to go. And I would be I'm open to you disagreeing and convincing me otherwise. But I did kind of feel like I would rather look at other options for that lot, whether it be, the fire station's really intriguing. I know we have municipal needs as well, but I just remember being there and being like, oh man, I wouldn't want to live right here. And I don't know that I'd be excited about relaunching a housing project on that same property.
Mr. Card.
I would agree that I think this is a terrible site for housing. I understand that beggars can't be choosers. It is hard to spend money. I think I've quoted you on that a lot. I think almost every one of our Mira CAC meetings, I quote you. So that really has stuck with me, Kevin. Thank you for that. One of the things that I've been preaching a lot about, and I'll accept preaching, I think is an accurate term, is Highway 99 realignment. And I think, looking at the map, Front Street, this property provides an excellent opportunity for us to do some infrastructure development. Actually, our other property on Beatty could be a unique opportunity there as well. So I don't think, personally, I want to rush into a use for this property. I don't think if a good opportunity came by, I'd be opposed to exploring it, but I think there are some huge opportunities in a much larger scale for us with some of these properties that we possess through Mira that have just sort of coincidentally, they sit in our lap and they allow us an opportunity to do some pretty important infrastructure changes to our community. So I'll continue to bang my 99 realignment drum and be enticed by this property as part of that.
Board Member Ayers.
Yeah, in regards to the housing, I'm really curious to know what our vacancy rates are right now. Vacancy rates are right now with the various types of housing, because we've just had so much come online lately, market rate, affordable. I'm just really curious to know if, how well they're leasing up before we keep talking about, additional housing, so we can at least understand what type of housing we need the most.
Happy to work with the housing division in the planning department to start asking that question. It's going to take some research because, we're going to have to make some calls, basically. It's not really tracked anywhere that I know of, but happy to do that. We can give that direction tomorrow to start doing that kind of survey.
There's the, what's it called, Southern Oregon Rental Association that keeps numbers, and so they should be a pretty easy way to get those numbers, because
They do multifamily too?
I think it's just property management. It's like all the property managers get together and then they they look at their numbers and then they talk about how they're doing.
Well, and planning tracks housing need assessment, so there are current numbers that planning has.
Okay.
And it would be useful to have those vacancy numbers. And I do want to say that there is no rush to make a decision about what to do by any means. It's just that it takes a long time to decide how you want to do it and then to actually go out and implement it. So we need to be thinking about it on a concerted basis. I will say that my understanding of the vacancy rates is that this tranche of housing that is still most severely underserved is affordable housing. That is the most dire need in terms of lack of units. And one of the attributes of this site, sadly, that makes it a good affordable housing site is that it has virtually no NIMBY quotient, which is always a huge issue in terms of how you cite affordable housing projects. So that's one of its site advantages for affordable housing.
So the
But even timber products didn't want housing in their backyard.
Go figure.
So, okay, there's just a little bit of information from the board, not necessarily direction, but just looks like more wait and see, not really gearing up to run into the next housing project that might go on that location. So we'll continue on.
Let me add now to the question of the $4.2 million. So in our agreement with Rubicon Eadlin, we were going to contribute the land and $4.2 million in cash as the local $6 million match to leverage these sources of funds from out of the community. It was going to be about $35 million of state and federal money that we would attract into the community with this local match. So we have the land value that's embodied in the land and however we dispose of it. The 4.2 million is been earmarked for that project. Whatever happens with this site, we'll need to anticipate possible use of funds for whatever the future use and disposition of the site is according to the development agreement with somebody who's going to take it off our hands. I think that would become quite clear in the event that it was a municipal facility like the fire station or MPD evidence storage, that there would likely need to be some kind of money made available to help make that transition occur. So again, there's no rush to make any decision about what you do with the 4.2, but in terminating the Dolores Huerta agreement, it will just go to unallocated money and available to determine whether it needs to be used for the site in the future or not.
Great. Mr. Mayor.
I guess something for the board. I guess I find myself in a position right now of we have some interesting irons in the fire. I just don't know if I have enough bandwidth to think about setting aside money for this property nor the use of this property at this point in time. I think if we are maybe in 6 months, it'd be something that might start to present itself a little bit better. So again, I think at this point, I'm looking at the 4.2 as not necessarily tagged to this property anymore, but more open for whatever use makes the most sense.
And I would agree with that, and the fact that this property has value by itself, right? You know, it has a value of 1.7 or 1.5, depending on how someone else sees it. So if you look at more of maybe a private development, I mean, in itself, like, it has its own value. We don't necessarily need to put $4 million into it, or we wouldn't be able to put $4 million into it anyway, unless it's our own public projects. All right.
Or affordable housing.
Right.
That's the other exempt category for public
So-
works. For prevailing wage, excuse me.
So a quick question for the board. So let's say, someone's just really diving into mirror meetings and they're like, oh my goodness, this parcel of land is now available and I really want to put housing on it. Let me call up the projects manager and see if it's available. Like, what do you want Harry to do? If he gets approached by this, do you want him just to say, hey, here's some ideas that someone brought to the table, or do you want him to say, you know what, the board is kind of sitting on it right now, What's the kind of expectation from Harry on this?
As a well-seasoned Mira veteran once said, it's hard to spend money. So if we have a project that's literally coming to us that we can deliver on, I say hell yes. I don't care how good or bad it is. I mean, if we can actually deliver on a project, then that's definitely something I want to see.
But I guess on this, we're not putting out an RFP, right? We're not putting out an RFP that says, hey, we have this land, come give me what you want to do with it. We're just kind of like, if something bubbles up, we'll have that chat, kind of. Okay.
If somebody approaches the agency, we'll bring it to you to say, we've had an inquiry, and then you all can say, pursue it or not. Okay. So we'll bring you a resolution terminating the option agreement in July, and action to move the allocation of $4.2 million to unallocated balance. I guess the one thing I would like to know is, would you like me to initiate a conversation with the Housing Authority to see if they might have interest in this site or not? No obligation on our part or theirs.
Yes.
I mean, me personally, to the board, that's completely fine. If they've expressed interest, you take a look at it. I'll be honest, even if the project shows up, I don't know how fast I'm going to look to support it financially with cash.
Due to other things that might be occurring in the district.
There's other things in the district are going to have to come together so fast that there is absolutely no reason to obligate anything in the next, 9 months. And I don't know, we've owned the property for 4
years. Yep.
So.
What's another 4?
What's another 4? Okay. At any rate, yeah, I think that makes perfect sense to reach out to somebody who was an interested partner at that point in time. To me, not giving direction per se, but certainly I just wanted to be clear. I'm not really interested in a cash contribution right now.
And just for the board's knowledge, Mura was the owner of the property where the Housing Authority built the Concord Apartments downtown. So we have a relationship, an institutional relationship with them on bringing affordable housing into the center city. That was also tied up with, what would they call it, Cherry Creek? Was that the project over on the east side? So it was part of the solution of the tensions around that proposal. Okay, that's the direction that I needed. Thank you. Okay, now, La Fiesta shared parking. As this image shows, you see the La Fiesta grocery store site plan. We swapped the front property, which was the old Pacific Survey Supply Company building. We cleared it, and we traded it for Mr. Gonzalez's property, which is the property to the behind that fronts on the creek. At the time that we did this, we just did a very clean, fair market rate real estate transaction. So there is no Mura money in his project. We just swapped land and equalized it, so there's no funds of a public agency in his project at the state. When we drafted the DDA, we were still some time out before we knew exactly what they were going to propose and what kind of assistance they might want to look for. So the DDA was somewhat open-ended to say the board will entertain potential requests for additional support of the project, if it makes sense. So in their site planning, they've amalgamated the different uses around this property, which includes the market, the restaurant, the nightclub, and then in the back is a building which was until recently the administrative offices of Kids Unlimited. They have since sold that property to a private developer, private entity. And the notion was that we would work collaboratively with all those parties to come up with a shared parking agreement to serve the needs of all of the uses that we were anticipating around this site, and that Mura would be a participant in a shared parking arrangement. We do allow shared parking under the Medford Municipal Code. To my knowledge, there is not actually any recorded shared parking agreement that has ever been put in place, even though it's been enabled as a matter of approval by the city, so that would fall under the code. So just to drill down on this, the proposed parking field does include a portion of parking that would come onto the Mura property, which is shown, the portion that is outlined in red. And this poses a really significant problem going back to the way we have to deal with prevailing wage. If Mura owns that dirt and we have a parking lot on it and it's constructed for us or with us, it is a public work, okay? And it's subject to prevailing wage. If our piece is a public works, it taints the entire project so that everything else is now subject to prevailing wage. So for us, the real benefit was that we anticipated some future use on the property behind fronting on the creek, and that we would benefit from having parking. We don't need to own it. We can just have it as a parking agreement and have an easement to use it. So to thread the needle on this question of this, avoiding this becoming a public works and tainting the rest of the project, my recommendation is that we look at an additional property line adjustment so that the parking field is entirely on the market property and we are the beneficiary of the parking agreement and the parking easement over that. And we can participate in that financially to the extent that the board feels is appropriate. The idea was that initially we would probably do a pro rata share of the cost of constructing the parking lot for the portion that was on our property. We could do that. That's probably about $250,000 for that. It's about 10,000 square feet. And my most recent estimate of parking lot construction is about $25 a square foot all in with curb, lighting, the whole 9 yards, stormwater containment. So this is the way we would do this would be through an amendment of the existing DDA with Mr. Gonzalez that would convey the property into his title, assemble it with his site in exchange for the parking agreement, and then anything we did financially to support the development of the parking would be in the form of a direct economic development grant that had to be spent for that purpose. That goes to the developer below the threshold that triggers prevailing wage.
Mr. West.
Just to clarify, so we're proposing a property line adjustment to give that strip of land to Mr. Gonzalez.
Correct.
In exchange for a parking easement in perpetuity that would be granted, I guess, a public parking lot basically at that back area.
Well, what would happen is that the parking agreement would cover all of the parking, not just the piece on our property.
Oh, okay.
We would
I
have
misunderstood.
because all of the parties can use this parking lot, the entire parking lot, right? Including KU. And currently, there is an easement to the benefit of the KU property on our property. This used to be the old North's restaurant property. And when they sold off the building where Mahar Homes was, which was the KU property, when they sold that, they retained the right to park on all of this stuff, right? They gave them parking. So there are a set of easements already in place, and we're going to have to restructure them according to this new parking arrangement. But yes, the benefit to Mura would be our property would be supported with parking on the entire development of the La Fiesta Market.
And so I'm trying to figure out why we need parking here. Is it because we want access to this side of the creek in the future if we had some kind of creek revitalization?
Right. When we looked at this, if you look at the northern portion above the parking lot, we have about a net, well, including the portion of the parking that's on our property, there's about an acre of land there. And the thought was, the original intent was, we have this flagpole that connects it to Riverside. That provides a path to a future pedestrian bike bridge that could cross the creek and connect the neighborhood directly to Bear Creek, which was one of the, Bear Creek Greenway, which was one of the things that's in the Liberty Park plan. So this essentially does the land deal to facilitate that. We wound up putting the regional stormwater treatment facility on a portion of the land that Mura owns, which further reduces what is the net available land to actually put something on, whether that might be a small apartment building or something else. It may not wind up being anything more than a trailhead to the Bear Creek Greenway at the end of the day. So we're not in a position to have to make a decision about what that future use is. However, we have parking to support whatever future use we may want to offer it up for.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, I think all that sounds great, and I would move forward with
So
that
I will
direction.
prepare an amendment for the DDA to memorialize a land exchange with some financial incentive participation by Mira to help create the parking that we're going to enjoy.
Great. Mr. Quinn.
So if we still own the land, is it Mr. Gonzalez, you said?
Mr. Gonzalez, mhm.
We'll have to pay prevailing wage to build this parking lot. How much would that cost extra versus what he would have to pay if he doesn't get subject to prevailing wage? A lot, I would
Okay.
imagine.
Prevailing wage, on average, increases the cost of a project by anywhere from 22 to 30% across
Okay.
the board.
So how many dollars would you say he's saving if we do this deal and get him
Well,
out of prevailing wage?
Here's the thing. When BOLI looks at whether prevailing wage applies, they look at the entire project. We cannot segment our portion and say it only applies there.
Although that's not my question. As long as we own part of the property that he's wanting to do the project on, he's subject to prevailing wage for the whole thing.
If the activity is a public works, yes.
Okay. But if we give him the land but just retain an easement, he's not subject to prevailing wage because it's no longer public property.
It's no longer a public work by
Got it.
Mura, yes.
So how much money is he saving if we do the deal?
Well, if you took the entire cost of developing the parking and the market, which I don't know what the current cost estimate is, but certainly in the upper single millions, I would say probably $8 to $10 million, perhaps, at the end of the day, it would be add 30%.
So he's saving $3 million under the deal.
Or we're not imposing a $3 million burden on him by making his project subject to prevailing wage.
I get that. So
Yep.
why would we kick in more if we're already saving him $3 million?
Well, we could just take the whole portion of our property out of it completely and he can do his project.
Or we could give it to him and he could build it for us for free because we're saving him $3 million.
Well, again, if it's an ownership thing, the prevailing wage law has a different treatment for property and projects that are on public land as opposed to public funds of a public agency that are in a private development. So we have to navigate between both of those requirements, which are applied separately to a project evaluation.
But the point of us,
Let's try some other people. Mr. Curlinger?
Well, so just to get down to the brass tacks, Harry suggested we possibly do the property line adjustment with an agreement for shared parking and a pro rata. About 250 was your rough guess. John, what you're saying is, why would we give anything besides the land if we're saving him that much money? Is that a fair assessment? Okay. I was just trying to clarify.
Well, I think the question is we've not been approached for any financial aid to get this project done. All we did was provide a better site for it at no residual public funds in the project. So whether the board wants to support the project financially or not is a decision you all have to make.
Councilor Ayers?
I think, John, what's important to understand is that we have been working with Mr. Gonzalez on this project for a long time, and it became kind of and correct me if I'm wrong, Harry, it became kind of a shared project to benefit the Liberty Park neighborhood, to give us the land swap that we needed to do the water treatment facility. So really, it's not about us. I mean, we are trying to support this project because it's been in our Mira Liberty Park plan for a while now. This isn't Mr. Gonzalez coming to us with I'm going to build this and make a bunch of money. It was us supporting this project from the beginning. So I think that's the basis for what Harry's bringing to us. Is that fair?
Well, I would start at the very beginning, which is he was originally going to build this on the back parcel, and it was not a very good project. And by creating the opportunity on Riverside, we've made a great idea for the neighborhood into a much better project for the neighborhood and for Riverside Avenue. So supporting that, and probably a more expensive project, I would say, to do it this way, because it's a building that has really, I mean, he was just going to build basically a concrete cinder block box in the back, because it didn't really have any frontage that was of any architectural interest. This is something that helps establish a more urban development pattern and in fronting to Riverside. So there were some larger urban design and urban aesthetic benefits to getting him to move his project forward. And our participation in a financial capacity helps him create a better project.
Go ahead.
So on our property, I believe what I'm looking at are 20 parking spaces and a drive aisle.
Correct.
Okay. Do we need 20 spaces for our property?
Well, we would actually have access to 127 parking spaces over the entire parking field, including the stuff up in the upper left-hand corner, which is also part of Mr. Gonzalez's property. So there's significant parking capacity to support development on that site. So we wouldn't, if somebody were to come forward and do a proposal to put something on that back, they wouldn't have to park it. We have the parking in place.
I totally understand all that. Long story short is what if Mr. Gonzalez just skipped those 20 spaces in the drive aisle? Is he parked good enough for his building?
Well, the drive aisle is also where we have future cross access to the property to the south for when that redevelops. Because of our frontage on Riverside, we have no lower order streets to take access from. So all of the developments here have to anticipate and provide for cross access in the future.
If we had to just cut it down, this proposal as shown, does it provide benefit to Mira?
Does taking that parking out
As
benefit?
shown, right here, does Mira get benefit with the drive aisle and the parking spaces?
No, I think we are benefited by having the parking, the drive aisle available to us. It also constrains their access, then we'd be granting easements for them to come across our property to get to their dumpsters and to service the rear of their property.
All right, anything else?
Okay. All right, last month, we started a conversation around the Beatty Street redevelopment. These were the images that I showed you, the assemblage that we have, the proposal that we received from Mr. Constanza to do a phased 3-lot, 3-building development of moderate income housing. The board had a lot of reservations and wanted to explore other options here. Since that time, I had the opportunity to take Mr. Curlinger and Mr. West to see the site. They had not ever seen it, so they have a little bit better context and understanding of what's going on in the neighborhood and what they could envision. You all raised questions about what is the appropriate density of this site, how is parking to be accommodated, what parking mandate might we want to impose on any housing development at this location. There was some discussion about whether there is a home ownership development opportunity that we could explore on this site as opposed to rental housing. Other than helping board members understand the site a little bit better, I'm not clear where or how you would like this conversation about what we solicit for this site, how it unfurls, and how you make decisions about the development objectives for it. So I'll lean on Mr. Curlinger and Mr. West to see if they have any thoughts from our tour.
Yeah, so there's a fair amount of discussion about this, just kind of the unknown about this property. So is there more information that board members have? Mr. West?
Yeah, I just want to thank you again for taking Mr. Curlinger and I on the tour of all the sites, especially this one. I feel like I understand it a lot more. I'm definitely in favor of getting more housing on this site. From our conversation, my only reservation is that we maintain some kind of architectural control to ensure that it's developed in a way that moves the Liberty Park neighborhood in the right direction.
Based on my proximity, it sounds like Mr. Curlinger agrees with that assessment. Is there any, do you have more comment?
No.
Okay. Any other, is there any other discussion on this? Yeah, go ahead.
This may have been asked before. Is this within a CFA that the city's identified?
No,
Okay, thanks.
no, it's not. It's well north of that.
Is the board okay with pursuing what we heard about last month with trying to come up with a development agreement for this property? Looks like.
If I may, I'd like to ask a follow-up to Mr. West. I appreciate and agree with your concern about architectural control. When we did the Genesis apartment with Laszlo Yaila, Mura paid for the architectural design and construction documents. We owned them if he was not going to proceed with that project. So we have the ability to participate in that design process. I would not suggest having 9 members of the board be the design review committee. That would
agree with
be
you.
really challenging, and but we are in a position to say we could design a prototype. We could, and all we have to do is go through schematic design and have some architectural elevations. Say, you do something like this, we'd be happy with an image like this. So we could spend a little bit of money on some conceptualization, if that would be, if the board would feel better knowing what the product is that we're going to get and being predictive about it. So we could allocate some funds towards doing some preliminary design work, if you like.
Mr. West, would you like to take the lead in what you want?
Well, I would be happy to.
Is there anyone else that would want to join Mr. West with this Architectural Review Commission? Mr. Card would like to be a part of this. Is there another individual that would like to do it?
I think we need some feminine input to make sure it feels home, like comfortable. No.
You're
Debbie, you're going to be our.
So this is not a voting meeting, but it looks like direction is to move forward, and then Mr. West and Mr. Card. And did you have a question?
Comment. So
Yeah.
there are multifamily design standards in the city. So I guess the question would be, you'd want something beyond what we would require.
I think so.
Okay. Art Deco. Or
So
speedy modern, or whatever it was called. The other would be, it'll be interesting to see how much, I guess, funds are going to be requested. And my wallet feels very tight right now.
That's fair.
So I will assemble
Yeah.
a subcommittee of Mr. West and Mr. Card, anybody else who wants to participate. We'll look at the code requirements for multifamily housing design standards, and we can look at some housing prototypes as visual, kind of a chat book to stimulate some conversation, and that can eventually, wind up in some kind of imagery that you would recommend to the board.
And I would also add anything else related to the project that they could assist with in terms of just some board member muscle if there's the need for that.
Muscle, I'll keep that in mind.
Mr. Keating. Okay, so please add Mr. Keating to that.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So the final 3 things we can go through pretty quickly, because these are just tossing an idea saying, are you interested? Would you like more information? Because all these are meant to be a shot across the bow. If you want to do it, we'll present something more formal at a future meeting. And this has always been a bit of a struggle for me as staff, is that people come and pitch ideas to me all the time, and a lot of them are like, well, you're not even in the district, so go away, or that's never going to fly. That doesn't make sense. But I am not the gatekeeper to the decision-making or the allocation of funds or what becomes a project. I have to be able to bring those. So I try and bring these inquiries in a preliminary fashion to you in this setting so that you can give a thumbs up, thumbs down. I want to hear more about it. So, so 3 items. The first one is Living Waters Church, which is located in the former Lithia headquarters at 360 East Jackson Street. They have been working on a multi-phased renovation of their building as their congregation has grown. They have strictly stayed under the assembly limits that trigger seismic retrofit in order to manage the cost of the project. They have now grown with such success that their occupancy needs now have gone over 300 people, and that triggers a major number of seismic retrofits that they will have to do to be able to meet that new occupancy load. They were among the first entities that I spoke to when the board did the substantial amendment, because the board reserved 10% of the new TIF to support seismic retrofit of downtown buildings. And we had a very difficult time finding projects that could use it, because most of the projects, the cost of seismic retrofit exceeded the entire amount of money that we had available to support it with. One of them we looked at was the Elks Lodge. The seismic alone was like $1.4 million. And they didn't actually have to do it. They were looking at long-range, stability of that building, and if they could afford to do it, they would, but it would have wiped out the entire fund. So we've never made effective use of those funds for seismic. That's why we added sprinkler system installation as an alternative use. We've done 6 projects and spent, a couple $100,000 to help people put sprinkler systems in their buildings. And so that's been very successfully received. So Living Waters Church has done all the architectural and engineering. They have their building permits. They're already through. This is as close you get to a shovel-ready project as you can imagine. And they have a construction bid, a firm bid, to do the entire scope of work for $350,000. Now, when I talked to Living Waters Church back in 2018 and 19, they inquired about tapping us for seismic. And I was new to the community, and I'm always sensitive to when public tax dollars wind up in religious organizations, and I don't know what the lay of the land was around that. And I said, I don't know if that's an issue or not here, but let's see if there's some other ways that we can help you. They had the parking lot across the street, which we bought from them, and they used all that money and put it into their renovation. So that was a kind of a sweet deal. We gave them $125,000 and we move along. So now they are at the cusp of, pulling the trigger on doing this project, and they're looking for financial support. So my question to you is this a project that you feel you would be comfortable supporting under the original intent of supporting seismic retrofit of downtown buildings? And how would you like me to proceed if you would like to hear a more formal presentation?
Mr. Keating.
Have we ever considered loaning the money to them rather than actually giving it to them? In other words, giving them a loan?
It can be a loan, it can be a grant. Yeah, the financial mechanism is open to negotiation.
Okay,
so for example,
that might relieve the religious situation if it's a loan.
So for example, the loan that we gave for the renovation of the Elks Lodge,
yeah.
It was a $150,000 loan that included a $50,000 forgiveness after year 5. So it was a blend, but they had to perform in order to get the loan forgiveness. So it's all open as far as how you structure any financial support.
Then I'm in favor of it. Yeah.
I'm assuming they're not asking. I mean, I'm sure they might ask for $350,000, but the intent is really not to give $350,000. It's some other number.
We would like to request your consideration of support up to $350,000 for this project.
I'm supportive, but more so at that similar number of what was done for the lodge.
Okay.
So I don't have a number to give them, unless someone else has a number to give them. I don't know if 150 is the right deal. I don't know if it's 150 with a $50,000 rebate. I think, but I'm fine with negotiations at the very least and giving some support towards them. Yes, Councilor Ayers?
My only thought is, you know, if the funds really were dedicated for seismic for downtown, then part of me says it doesn't really matter who receives it, whether it's a nonprofit or a church, or, I mean, it almost seems discriminatory if we say, well, we're going to help seismic for-profit businesses, but not for religious. So I think it all comes back to what that original intended purpose was. And if it really is seismic, then it doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah. And
Except for pot shops. I'm just kidding. I'm just
and
kidding.
car washes. And from my feeling is 100% content neutral, right? I do not care about the content. They're a organization doing everything above board, so I have no problem with whatever content it is. It's the fact it's a downtown building more so than what happens in that building. Councilor Card.
I do just want to point out that the point of Mira is to help increase property values, and as a nonprofit, a church doesn't pay anything from its property. So the argument, I think, realistically can be made that by preserving that building, that creates more value in the surrounding properties as part of a fight against blight, et cetera, et cetera. But I do want to keep in mind there is an inherently discriminatory piece of this, which is to boost property values. And when there's no property value because it's a nonprofit church, we do have to think more broadly than that specific piece.
Mayor.
And I think the other is when this really came about, what we were experiencing was that we were trying to develop more dwellings in downtown. And a lot of times when these buildings, when the use converted from commercial to residential for habitable spaces, that's what triggered these seismic. And that's really the reason why that thing got put in. And then we couldn't give the money away. So kind of a little bit full circle, but that's kind of was the whole basis of the seismic money to start with, was for dwellings.
Mr. Curlinger.
Nick, were you saying the point is to improve property value or to improve the tax basis?
Both. I mean,
Well, no, I'm not being a smart aleck. I generally was like, there's property value.
Well, it's taxable.
Okay,
assessed
thank you.
Property value.
I just want to make sure I understood.
Okay, so we assume a little bit of conflict. So should the and I think Mr. Card brings up a fair point. So is it the direction of the board to enter a discussion and see what they come back with? Is the intent of the board to just not enter the discussion for whatever reason? What do we want to do? We heard from Mr. Keating. Mr. Curlinger, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll say, I guess, a couple things. If there's no policy for the city or for Mura prohibiting from engaging with a nonprofit in this, have the conversation. We're committing to absolutely nothing right now, and we can
there's
go
no
back to
commitment
them
here,
and
yeah.
say, no.
Looks like the direction going forward. So
Okay.
I would at least mention that it would be on the lower end of the giving number, but a contribution is possible.
Okay. We'll explore that with them. Okay, well, here's another request. Well, it's not exactly a request. So we have already been involved with the Oasis Center of the Rogue Valley. They purchased the property at the corner of Almond and East Main across the street from Hawthorne Park. Used to be a real estate office and Max's Mission and a couple other things. So last year, we gave them $200,000 to buy the house that you see at the lower end of that photograph, which was one of the nastiest drug houses in the city. Really, really bad. Sex trafficking, open air market sale of fentanyl, really bad. It was one of the worst that PD was working with. And they acquired it and demolished it, and we supported that with the $200,000 grant. Now, that was very specifically to look at a blighted property that needed to be removed and a serious attractive nuisance that was impeding betterment in the neighborhood. So it had a larger purpose that is kind of central to Mura's mission. So they are now grappling with a master planning process to kind of make sense of these three buildings that front on Main Street, the center one of which is at a different elevation than either of the buildings on either side. So they want to consolidate this and make a coherent facility for their entire operation. And they are in the process just now of beginning master planning. They have received other sources of funds from the city. They did receive some CDBG money. They are also going to be the recipient of a $300,000 direct congressional directed funding grant to support their project. So they've been very effective at assembling multiple sources of funding. And I was approached by the architect who's doing the master planning to say, is there anything here that Mura could help participate in? I said, well, if you need a sprinkler system, we can help you with the sprinkler system because that's already enabled. And if you need some seismic, we could probably throw some dollars on the table for seismic. But for a general renovation, we don't have an existing program. That would need to go to the board to see if it was something that they wanted to participate in. And I know that you received an update earlier tonight from Youth 715 about their work that's going on in the neighborhood. They're immediately across the street and next door and behind them. So there has been a lot of good social service energy that's gone into this area of Almond Street and cleaned it up quite a lot. And that's progressing.
Go ahead, Mr. Card.
I like our loan program. I mean, I think this is a great idea. It creates an incentive. When you talk about what you're doing, what we're doing here is we're helping preserve and expand the usability of buildings in downtown. There's fall-off benefits, even if this one happens to be occupied by a nonprofit at the time. So that's kind of the direction that I think we should go with something like this.
I don't disagree. I was just going to bring up the fact that they're a nonprofit and they don't pay taxes.
But, well, and I would say that the offset is what they've done to improve the neighborhood is far beyond any value of the increment that they would receive, that we would realize out of the property alone. They've been a great force for improvement.
Was there an ask on this?
No, there was not a specific ask. We're early in the stages, just trying to identify potential money. And part of this is to be able to, to match things up, to leverage other sources of funds. So that's one of the key factors is that this already has some leverage.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm actually looking at a project in a different city right now where their Mura is supporting the development of this project. And the whole thing is basically a forgivable loan, and I'm not saying that it all needs to be forgivable, but basically a percentage of the loan is forgivable after milestones are completed. So, they complete this part of the project, they get this much back, and then when they're done, interest accrues, but it's all forgiven if they complete the project. So we can also maybe start having discussions about things like that would make sense depending on the type of project or what we want to see out of the project.
Okay. Anyone disagree with board member Ayers there? So potential loan program, or at least a small discussion and see what
we'll quantify what their needs are and where we can put a thumb on the scale to help them with their project.
Great.
Okay. Finally, this is really much more like a follow-on to what we did with the Elks Lodge. As you all know, restaurants are a key metric of a successful downtown. Having an entertainment and dining district as a destination is one of the fundamental pillars of a successful, thriving downtown. And restaurants in particular are challenged by the fact that they have high cost of entry because of their assembly classification under the building code, which puts additional burdens on them, and the cost of putting in a kitchen. So building on what we did with the Elks Lodge, the developers of the Element Hotel, the Reimers, who are also in the restaurant business, They have independently begun working on developing concepts for a suite of new hotels, new restaurants in downtown, 5 or 6 different restaurant concepts, and looking at partners to implement them. They would like an opportunity to present their ideas to you and say, is there something that Muro would be willing to participate in? Because we do face these front-loaded capital expenses that make it hard to make these things pencil on the front end. I have been told, and I have not had a chance to fully research it, that the City of Salem Urban Renewal Agency actually has a program specifically to help pay for kitchens in new restaurants in downtown Salem. I'll get you some information about that. I don't know if it's a loan program or if it's a grant or a forgivable loan. I'll get you details, but there are some models out there that other communities are
Are
pursuing.
they going to come here with a bunch of food, and then we're going to pick the restaurant that could potentially go there, you know?
Maybe I can get them to do the council dinner.
Hey!
For you guys. They are based in Ashland, however. That might be a problem for you.
Mr. Curlinger.
I think you're going to get inundated with questions on what the specifics of this look like, but I think it's worth looking into.
Well, that's for them to answer. The first questions need to be directed to the developer who's proposing this as a concept, and then we can figure out what is the appropriate response or intervention that Muro feels would be.
I'm intrigued by the unique concept.
Yeah.
Mr. Keating.
Yeah, I would like to hear more about this, particularly question I don't know if you have the answer for yet, but would this take existing buildings that are not restaurants and make them into restaurants, or take existing restaurants and buy them and change them into a different format?
It could be either.
Either
you
of
know,
those.
for example, the old downtown market that's in the Bohemian Club, that's actually a property that they have looked at as a potential conversion. But there are lots of other empty spaces that are not currently restaurants that could be candidates for a new restaurant concept.
Okay.
Okay, we'll schedule them to come present to you next month in a
Awesome.
study session. I have nothing else for you. If there are any questions that you have for me, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any further remarks or questions? Seeing none, we are adjourned.
This was
Thank
my
you.
last day of school, so I enjoyed spending it with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.